The whole story starts with our protagonist gulping and getting super nervous. Then a blonde girl confesses her feelings to him and says she also loves reading manga. Then a redhead wonders how things got to such a weird point, and a brunette asks if he enjoyed it while all he wanted was a normal, quiet life. Then a blue-haired girl smiles at him, telling him what she's been interested in lately. But right after, everything changes completely with a simple snap of the fingers out of nowhere. Suddenly, a guy starts yelling our protagonist's name, Kim Yu-sung, and he's really shocked by it. He wakes up from a dream and sees the heart monitor showing what his heart rate was. Then we see him in a hospital bed, all bandaged up, with no idea where he is. A doctor asks if he can remember anything, but all he can think is that he's a student. He remembers a fire that happened in a lab, where he tried to save all his research. Seeing that he's in a hospital room, our protagonist is completely confused by the situation. Looking to the side, our guy's eyes go wide with pure surprise. With that, he can see his reflection in the water pitcher that was right next to his bed. Seeing a face that wasn't his, he vaguely remembers a very strange car accident. Then he finally understands the situation and realizes he has taken over someone else's body. The original owner of the body was named Kim Yu-sung, a Korean student living in Japan. Apparently, the young man was in a car accident and was out cold for a few days. He concludes that his old body was lost in the fire, and his soul took over the boy's body. Despite everything, he's pretty happy to have escaped his miserable life back in college. But he thinks it's better not to get too ahead of himself, because something strange could go wrong. Arriving at his new home, the young man wonders how he'll adapt to this new life. His new mother greets him with a smile and asks him to get plenty of rest after everything. So he goes up to Yu-sung's room, and his body seems to know the way on its own. Feeling a bit weird about invading someone's room, he decides to enter carefully. As soon as he opens the door to that room, the guy is totally shocked by what he sees. The sight our protagonist has of that room is simply unbelievable to him. He sees a giant poster of an anime girl plastered on the bedroom wall. And it wasn't just one, but several posters of female characters scattered everywhere. The place was like an otaku shrine, and he discovers that Yu-sung was a hardcore fan. Unable to believe what he's seeing, our protagonist is left completely speechless. With this whole situation, he ends up closing the bedroom door very quickly, feeling startled. Then he falls to the floor, wondering if he can really live life as Kim Yu-sung. He fears that the parents will notice if he acts differently since he knows nothing about that world. Not knowing what to do, he looks to the side and sees a poster that was in a picture frame. Looking closer, he thinks the character in the poster looks a lot like Yu-sung. At that moment, our guy gets a scare and falls backward, completely frightened. He simply can't believe that thing was a poster from some random manga. Trying to calm down, he thinks that this can't be some kind of trap set for him. To confirm, he looks at the bookshelf and sees manga of every imaginable type and genre. He then picks up a volume with a cover that he found really embarrassing to look at. Thinking for a moment, our guy feels like he's seen a very similar character before all this. He remembers a famous manga called Scramble Love, with 10 million copies sold. It was a classic romantic comedy that received a lot of praise when it was released. However, the original work had a very controversial ending that didn't please the fans at all. The unexpected ending with the childhood friend caused a real war on the internet. Thinking the book's story might be similar, he decides to give it a read to see. As he reads, the guy becomes more and more immersed in the manga's story. After finishing it, he's left with his mouth wide open, unable to believe what he just read. The read was so much fun that he simply ended up pulling an all-nighter, reading everything. The next day, his mom asks him to take care of the restaurant's orders just for a little while. He ends up responding in a kind of weird way, and his mom doesn't even notice the big difference. Already wearing an apron, he goes to greet the customers who had just arrived at the restaurant, but when he looks at the door, he's very surprised by who walked into the family restaurant. It was a blonde boy and a girl that he felt he had seen somewhere else before. The girl is super excited and says that today, she's the one paying for all his food. She calls him by the name Ryuji, and the guy seems really worried about the whole situation. Our protagonist repeats the name Ryuji in shock, not believing what he was seeing right there. Then he remembers that those are the characters from the famous manga called Scramble Love, and that guy right in front of him was Sakamoto Ryuji, the main protagonist of the series. Seeing the two of them standing there in front of him, he realizes this isn't an ordinary possession. Shaking with fear, he understands that he actually took over a body inside a manga book. To better understand the situation, he decides to organize everything that had happened. He was a college student who was lost in a fire and woke up in the body of Kim Yu-sung. And it turns out this Yu-sung guy is just a background character in the famous manga Scramble Love, the same series he spent all night reading to understand the body's previous owner. The big problem is that he had never read Scramble Love before and sees no advantage in this. Even though it's a book, the world seems very real, and nothing will go wrong if he doesn't get involved. So he decides that all he has to do is not get involved with the series' protagonist, Sakamoto Ryuji. This way he'll be able to live a very peaceful life as a simple background character in the series. After that, he got super busy reading all the books to pass as Yu-sung. He enrolled in a school far away to avoid the protagonist and got a full scholarship. After enrolling in the school, the guy also ended up joining the student council. Even with all that, his possession wasn't undone, and he has to live this new life. He thinks about how to prepare, but just studying isn't enough, and he doesn't have any cash. So he finally comes to the conclusion that he needs to start working out as soon as possible. Time passes, and now our protagonist is already in his second year of high school. His first year flew by, and in these last few months, he ended up changing his look quite a bit. The young man started training really hard every day at the gym to get stronger. With a lot of effort and dedication, he achieved a very impressive physique for a student. All of this was done with a single goal in his mind, which was to be able to protect himself. After all, this is the world of a manga, where bizarre things can happen out of the blue. He did all of this just to be able to prepare for a completely uncertain future. He managed to get through the first year, and now plans to continue exactly like that. But little did he know that all of his plans were about to change completely out of nowhere. The girl calling him is Yaguchi Maya, the main heroine of the entire manga's story, and the blonde guy is Sakamoto Ryuji, the original protagonist of the whole series he read. To his bad luck, our protagonist ended up in the same class as this Sakamoto Ryuji guy. He gets annoyed because he chose a distant school, precisely to avoid meeting the guy. Meanwhile, Ryuji complains that he had a bad feeling and ended up losing his wallet. Hearing that the protagonist bumped into a girl, a red flag goes up in our Yu-sung's head. At that exact moment, the classroom door suddenly swings open for everyone. The teacher comes in and asks all the students to take their proper seats. He's a man in a suit who asks for a moment of silence from the rowdy class. He says he has a very important announcement to make, making all the students curious. Then the teacher announces that the class will be getting a transfer student. With that, a beautiful girl with blonde hair suddenly enters the classroom. She is very pretty and seems to be a very lively and also quite extroverted girl. All the students in the class are shocked by the stunning beauty of the new student who arrived. The teacher then asks her to formally introduce herself to the entire class of students. The girl introduces herself as Kishimoto Rika and says she likes cats, sweets, and taking naps. Our protagonist already expected her to be in the same class as the main protagonist of the series. Besides, a heroine appears precisely in the form of a transfer student. Even without having read the series, he knows that Rika was the most popular in a fan poll. Although she didn't win in the end, the teacher starts choosing a seat for the girl. He then points to the empty seat and says she will be sitting right next to Sakamoto. The protagonist of the series doesn't seem to like the teacher's crazy idea one bit. Then he remembers the very aggressive girl he met earlier that same morning. At that moment, The transfer student also recognizes him right away and is totally shocked. Apparently, they bumped into each other, and she ended up calling him a pervert in front of everyone. The teacher smiles and says it's even better that the two of them already know each other from somewhere. The girl walks to her seat, grumbling about the very embarrassing situation that happened. She sits down next to the blonde guy, who is left not knowing what to do or what to say to her. Then the new student simply turns her head and completely ignores the guy next to her. Seeing the young woman's reaction, the protagonist of the series feels awkward about the whole situation. Without saying a word, she places the wallet he lost on his desk to return it. While the guy thanks her, our protagonist thinks he'll have to see this for 2 long years. Time passes, and that day's class finally comes to an end for all the students. A classmate approaches and asks to borrow Sung's manga magazine to read it. He says he can keep it because he wasn't planning any plot twists at school for him. Even without having read Scramble Love, he can still make some small predictions. But he knows very well that things in a manga never turn out as expected in the end. That's why he always reads the magazines to keep up with all the possible plot patterns. Suddenly, Ryuji approaches Rika and calls out to her so they can talk for a bit. He says it's about what happened in the morning, and she's surprised by his call. The girl agrees to talk with him for a bit, but only for a single minute. Seeing the two of them leaving, a classmate wonders if there's something going on between them. With that, Sung says he also needs to go to the restroom just to get out of there. As soon as he leaves the classroom, our guy starts following the series' main couple. He hides behind a wall so he won't be seen by the other students at the school. His very intimidating presence starts to attract the attention of all the students around. The other students get really scared by the aura he was emitting at the moment. Rumors about him being a dangerous guy or a yakuza start spreading among the students. He gets annoyed for being a trouble magnet, but notices that his presence is genuinely intimidating. Not caring about the others, he decides to pick up the pace to catch the event. For his predictions to come true, he needs to see everything and collect all the data. He knows that in school, there's only one place where a boy and a girl can talk, and this place was the only one he could think of for the two of them to go to at that moment. It was the most clitchest spot in all of anime, which was behind the school, as always. Arriving there, Ryuji bows and starts apologizing in a very desperate way. Hiding Sung analyzes the scene and calls it a real apology trap. He can't believe the protagonist struck that embarrassing pose just to apologize. The girl stares at the guy without showing any kind of reaction on her face. After a moment of silence, she can't hold it in and starts laughing at the boy's face. The young woman bursts out laughing at the scene, and Ryuji is left completely confused. She says he's much more innocent than she thought and smiles in a mischievous way. He asks if she wasn't mad, but Rika says that the whole thing was an accident. In hiding, our protagonist hears the girl say she just wanted to see his face again, and so begins the interaction of the bright personality of the heroine, Kishimoto Rika. All of this was just her first meeting event with the main protagonist. Our protagonist observes everything from a distance and thinks this is a classic rom-com opening. Suddenly, someone calls his name, and he turns around, startled, to see who it was. A girl with a fan asks what a future secretary of the council is doing there. She then accuses him of doing something shameful, like spying on the school girls. This girl here is Sayanji Kumiko, the head of the student council, and a very classic villainess. Despite her appearance, she's a tragic case who was forgotten in the series' original story. The black-haired girl approaches him with a very suspicious look about the situation. To create a diversion, he plucks a branch and says he was thinking of taking it to the council room. She remains silent for a moment, finding his idea very strange and nonsensical. With a surprised look, the girl seems to have been convinced by our guy's excuse. With that, she extends her hand and ends up taking the branch he was holding at the moment. Sung watches her in silence, not understanding what she was doing with that branch. She says that since he chose it, she will place the branch in the council's meeting room. The guy thanks her, but in reality, he just wanted to provoke her, and it ended up working. She then asks what he's doing there, since the semester had barely started. Kumiko says she wanted to have a meal with the council officers and invited him too. She calls for him to hurry to the cafeteria before all the seats are taken. He finds it strange because there's nothing in the cafeteria that would please her demanding palate. She laughs and says he doesn't really know her and accuses him of underestimating her all the time. The girl boasts about understanding food and also the culture of simpler people, and she says she can eat commoners' dishes without having any problem with the food. Our protagonist remembers her complaining about small portions and finds her impressive. He then informs her that the school cafeteria doesn't serve the dish she mentioned before. The young woman is shocked and asks what they have then, and he says there's a similar dish. She gets thoughtful about the dish's name and says it sounds very wrong for her to eat. Even though she's disgusted, she asks if she really has to eat that strange and weird dish. Sung teases her, asking if she wasn't just bragging about being a different kind of person. At that moment, a guy with glasses appears and suddenly calls her by the name Melody. He turns to our protagonist and asks if he's really the so-called Kim Yu-sung. The guy with glasses understands the situation and adjusts his glasses with a very serious look. He yells at Yu-sung, asking if he knows that he's part of the student council. The guy continues, saying that his lady skipped her meal just to look for him. Our protagonist gets confused and wonders why she would skip her meal just for him. The girl gets all embarrassed and denies having said she was feeling sad about it. The vice president says he will no longer tolerate his insolence towards his lady. He declares himself ready to risk his life for her and pulls her forcefully by the arm. As she's being dragged away, she says they'll postpone the meal and that he should take care for now. Our protagonist just stands there, not understanding anything that had just happened in front of him. The day passes, and the class finally comes to an end for all the students of that school. After class at the subway station, our protagonist ends up drawing everyone's attention. Today was the day of the main character's big event and the official start of Scramble Love. Thanks to his training, everyone in his class avoids him as if he were a walking plague. He's glad he trained and realizes that size really does matter in these situations. Looking at the board, he sees there are still about 10 minutes until the next train arrives. With that, he goes to a vending machine and gets a can of juice to drink. He thinks that the protagonists have already crossed paths, and the story will follow its normal course. While he's thinking that everything is going according to plan, someone taps him on the shoulder. He turns to see who it is, and is very surprised by the person who suddenly called him. It was Rika, the transfer student, who recognized him and introduced herself right then and there. Not understanding anything, our protagonist is shocked and wonders why she is right there. The girl says she was worried, but is happy to have found him so soon. She calls out to him and asks if he knows how to get to a certain address in the city. Our protagonist wonders how she knows his name since they've never spoken before now. Then he realizes his name is written on a tag on his uniform. With a smile, the young woman points to the tag on his uniform and calls him Kim Kun. He feels like a real idiot for completely forgetting about the name tag. The girl can't hold back her laughter upon seeing the funny reaction he just had. She then says he's a nice guy and that she was right about him from the beginning. Our protagonist is confused by the girl's sudden compliment, not knowing what to reply. He wonders what she's talking about and why she thinks he's such a good person. He questions how she could know anything about him since they barely know each other yet. Rika says he was giving off a really weird energy in the classroom earlier, and that she heard rumors about him fighting a gang of 50 men all by himself. She says that now she sees him treating the class queen in such a casual and relaxed way. Our protagonist is shocked to realize she has already drawn all her conclusions about him. He thinks he made a huge mistake by getting involved with one of the story's heroines. He wonders what to do since she was kind enough to approach him. Rika calls him again, pulling him out of his deep thoughts and bringing him back to reality. She complains that he didn't even respond to her compliment, and he quickly apologizes for it. Not knowing what to say, he just thanks her for the compliment the girl just gave him. The girl smiles, satisfied with the answer he gave, and seems very happy with it. He says the rest of the class might misunderstand him, but one day they'll see him for who he is. He advises her to think of the crazy stories as part of life's main plot. With a radiant smile, she says she'll be his friend until everyone truly understands him. Our protagonist remains silent, not knowing how to react to the declaration she just made. He realizes that scaring her off wouldn't work and that he'd have to play along for now. Even so, he decides that his act as a common background character in the story must continue. The girl celebrates that her plan worked and that he can delude himself as much as he wants. She then remembers what she wanted to ask and shows him an address on a piece of paper. Rika says it's her new address, but the subway lines are confusing for her to understand. He recognizes the address as a wealthy neighborhood and wonders if she's rich too. He says the place is near his house and that they'll take the same train together. Rika gets excited to hear that he lives near her and that asking was the right decision. She asks where he lives, and he says it's just 2 stations away from there. The girl is surprised by the proximity and says it seems like fate that they met. He realizes the situation is getting complicated and that he needs to think of something fast. He prepared himself to survive, but he never read the original story of Scramble Love. No matter how much he studies the patterns, Rika's information is much more accurate than his. The best move is to become her friend and get information to give some advice. He thinks that a small change in the plot shouldn't affect the main storyline too much. With a new plan in mind, he offers to buy her a drink from the vending machine. He says it's a thank you for being his friend, and she asks for a soda from there. The girl takes the soda can from his hand and opens it with a refreshing sound. She drinks it eagerly and says there's nothing better than a good cold soda. He asks if she really likes soda, and she says not that much. Rika explains that she was on a diet and hadn't had soda in a long time because of it. He's surprised to hear that she was on a diet, and she shows him a picture. She says she was a model for a fashion magazine and needs to take good care of her body. He comments that she looks different in the photos, and she denies it, saying it's not makeup. The train arrives, and he changes the subject to avoid the girl's fury at that moment. The train departs from the station at high speed, taking all the passengers to their homes. On the train, some people comment on our protagonist's intimidating appearance. Others complain about how they can't travel in peace with guys like him around. Rika jokes that thanks to him, she found a shortcut to not be bothered anymore. He takes out the subway map and says he'll help her find her way home. With that, he starts guiding the girl through the station, but she gets lost very easily. When the train arrives, he says goodbye and gets ready to get off at his home station. He tells her that her station is 2 stops later and says goodbye, thanking her for everything. Before he can leave, Rika calls him back to say a proper goodbye. She waves and says she'll be counting on him tomorrow too. As the doors close quickly, he stands on the platform, wondering why she would be counting on him the next day. He wonders why, of all people, she chose to get close to him specifically. The next day at lunchtime, some students call their friends to the cafeteria. Sung remembers that he forgot his lunch at home and is left not knowing what to do. He then opens a box of kimbap that his mom had prepared for him in the morning. Using chopsticks, he picks up a piece of kimbap and gets ready to eat his lunch. As he's about to eat, someone suddenly calls his name out of nowhere. He turns around and sees Rika standing in front of him with a lunch box in her hands to eat. She asks with a pitiful look if he was eating alone every day. He explains that eating in the classroom makes others uncomfortable and that eating alone is easier. He says it's easier for him and that the others need time to get used to it. Rika's face turns red, and she says that even so, it doesn't seem like he's alone. She seems to have had an idea while looking at the lunch box he's holding there. The girl carefully observes the kimbap he was eating from his lunch box. She asks if that's kimbap, and says it's the first time she's seen it up close. He nods in agreement, and she watches him with eyes sparkling with pure curiosity. With a smile, she asks if she can try one, and he's a little surprised. Rika gets annoyed with his reaction and says it's not because of his kimbap. He gets along well with her because the girl is more cheerful than he expected her to be. She picks up a piece of kimbap with her chopsticks and carefully brings it to her mouth. With sparkling eyes, she says it's really good and asks about the restaurant. He thanks her and says he'll tell his mom that she really liked the food. Rika then offers one of her rolled omelettes in exchange for a piece of kimbap. He accepts the trade and takes a piece of the omelette she offered him to try. With his chopsticks, he brings the omelette to his mouth and tastes it very carefully. As soon as he tastes the omelette, he is shocked by the flavor he feels in his mouth. He remembers someone saying that half of life is sugar, and the omelette is proof of that. He asks how much sugar she put in it, and she says just what she felt was right. With a serious expression, he says she really likes sugar, and that sweets are bad for you. He says that next time he'll show her a Korean-style omelet without sugar. She calls him weird, and says that everyone has their own tastes, which are very different. As they argue about the omelet, something ends up catching both of their attention. They see the student council president and her vice president standing in the parking lot. The president seems to be drinking something from a weird silver tube. Rika turns into a curious cat upon seeing the scene unfold in front of her. The blindfolded president says that improper relationships are forbidden. With a furious expression, she declares that as president, she cannot allow such a thing. Some gets confused and wonders what she means by an improper relationship. She says that a boy and a girl eating together in a deserted corner is very suspicious. The vice president approaches and accuses him of making excuses after being caught red-handed. Calmly, our protagonist states that there's nothing wrong going on and finds it very strange that they keep bumping into each other so much. The blonde agrees while eating, saying that running into each other every lunch break is too much of a coincidence. All nervous and hiding her face, the president asks if the guy has anything to say to her. Suddenly, the blonde girl recognizes her and points her finger, calling her the Dark Student Council President. Upon hearing this bizarre nickname, the dark-haired girl is completely shocked and speechless. The new friend explains with a smile that she heard rumors about the young woman always wearing a black uniform. This makes the counselor furious, stating that the outfit is meant to project the dignity of the council. But the heroine retorts that everyone calls the outfit cosplay, leaving the brunette super embarrassed. Shaking with frustration, the president mutters about the students making fun of her while Rika offers her a piece of bread. Seeing the classmates' dramatic reaction, the student backs away a little, completely confused by the scene. Pointing her fan, the brunette warns that she'll let it slide this time, but guarantees she will definitely be back. After that, the girl runs off, crying in shame, while her faithful vice president tries to catch up to her. Watching this comical escape, the big guy and his newest friend stand there processing what just happened. The girl quietly asks what she did wrong, and the guy just sighs, saying he has no idea. Soon, time passes, and the classic school bell finally rings, announcing the end of another school day. In the classroom, we see the protagonist, sitting alone at his desk while the others chat. Suddenly, a very cheerful voice calls his name, completely pulling him out of his deep thoughts. It was the young blonde girl who approaches with a radiant smile, asking why he hadn't left yet. She notices a guide on his desk, and the guy explains that he has free time now and wants to join a club. Very excited, the heroine suggests they take a walk around the school to try out some places today. Thinking for a bit, our protagonist concludes that visiting in person is much better than just theorizing. With that, he agrees with the idea and stands up, making the girl ask which place they would go to. Surprising the young woman, the dark-haired guy announces he has a bold plan to check out all the clubs. Making a scary face and exuding a strong purple aura, he begins to explain his reason. Snapping his fingers, he states he's very curious to find out just how far his physical strength can take him. So, the first stop for this dynamic duo ends up being the soccer club's training field. Arriving at the location, they soon witness a student kicking the ball with great enthusiasm in the middle of practice. However, the player's aim is far from good, and the ball flies far away from the goal, frustrating the goalie. Then we see two troublemaker-looking students complaining a lot about missing several shots. Acting like bullies, the two start yelling and picking a fight with the regular members of that team. Full of swagger, one of the slackers gets in position and says he'll show them how to really kick a ball. But before he could do anything, a firm voice interrupts them, making both of them break out in a cold sweat instantly. The one approaching is a tall guy wearing the number 10 jersey, and the pair of delinquents recognize him immediately. With a super serious and intimidating gaze, the leader politely asks the slackers to clear the field. The troublemakers tremble with fear as they remember that this is the powerful and legendary third-year captain. Without a second thought, the guys change their attitude and run off, quickly apologizing. With the bullies gone, one of the boys sighs in relief and thanks him very much for the timely help from before. The leader then asks about this year's freshman, but the member replies that he hasn't seen any talent. Sighing deeply, the captain states that this is a big problem because they need to win the nationals. Looking at the sky, he wishes to find at least one monster freshman to change the team's destiny. Meanwhile, the two who were kicked out walk through the hallways, boiling with pure rage for being humiliated. The shaved head guy suggests going back there and beating them up, but his partner quickly refuses, wanting to avoid more trouble. Scared, the blue-haired guy remembers that the captain's kicks are super fast and very dangerous, but the blonde ignores the warning, saying that fights depend on experience, and ends up bumping into someone. Furious for being interrupted, the troublemaker turns around, cursing the person and asking if they don't have eyes. However, upon looking up, he comes face to face with our big guy, who looks down on him, asking what he said. With a cold and piercing gaze, the protagonist politely asks the young delinquent to repeat the insults. Upon recognizing that face, the pair of bullies feel their souls leaving their bodies and start to tremble in fear, yelling that he's the famous leader of the Mad Dogs. The two guys run for their lives. Seeing the guys fleeing as if they saw a monster, our protagonist and the blonde girl are left completely confused by the scene. The other students comment in shock that the big guy scared off the bullies with just a look. The blonde scolds him for starting a fight so early, but he defends himself, saying he just looked at the guys. She sighs, stating that even his look is a big problem, and the guy agrees, upset. At that moment, we see one of the team members stopping the soccer balls in the middle of the sand field. Hearing a strange noise, the player turns around curiously, holding the ball in his hands to see what it is. With that, our protagonist enters the field accompanied by his friend, while everyone around panics. Seeing the scene, the troublemakers from before despair, thinking he came there to get revenge on them. Suddenly, a hand touches the shoulder of one of the players, who was completely paralyzed with fear. It was the team captain, telling his teammate to relax, because he highly doubted it was anything that bad. Sweating nervously, the boy says the big guy has a bad reputation and would never want to join a sports club. The leader comments that he has heard horrible rumors about the young man, but now everything made a lot of sense. Staring seriously at the guy, he deduces that with that physique, the freshman was surely planning something much bigger. Then, the intimidating boy plants his feet firmly on the ground, stopping right in front of the club's leader. The number 10 recognizes him immediately by name and says he's heard a lot about him around. Crossing his arms, the leader introduces himself and then asks what brings such a famous figure to the field. Our protagonist calmly replies that he wants to try out for the team, startling the upperclassmen. The player gets tense upon noticing that the freshman is very tall, making him feel like a dwarf next to him. Furthermore, he observes the guy's defined muscles, noting that he has a very intimidating physique. With this, the captain imagines that if that monster joins the team, winning the national championship would be easy. Looking deep into the freshman's eyes, the leader makes his decision and really wants to have the boy on his team. The big guy finds the stare down strange, making the upperclassman apologize and explain how the tryout works. Next, a ball is carefully placed on the penalty spot in the middle of the sand field. The rule is simple, and he just needs to kick the empty goal with all his strength, with only one chance. Taking a deep breath, the young man reflects on the instruction to use absolutely all of his enormous physical strength. A strong purple aura covers his body, and he decides to give it his all since this is his only opportunity. At that moment, he focuses all his absurd energy into his legs, assuming the perfect posture for the kick. With a totally focused and terrifying look, the big guy channels the equivalent of 300 kilos of force. Then he spins his body with incredible speed, hitting the ball with an incredibly powerful kick. The impact is so violent that the ball is crushed at the exact moment it receives the strong blow. A true explosion of purple energy occurs, kicking up dust in all possible directions on the field. Seeing that insane demonstration of power, all the club members' eyes go wide. Completely in shock, the captain murmurs that the kick was so fast, he couldn't even see the ball. However, upon looking towards the goal, they realize that the net is still empty and without any mark of impact. Trembling with pure dread, the team leader wonders what kind of bizarre sorcery had just occurred. The big guy stands there staring at the completely busted ball on the ground, while the upperclassman tries to make sense of the scene. Sighing, the protagonist deduces that joining the team isn't going to happen and asks the blonde to check the next option. The girl says that the basketball club is nearby, and the two walk off, leaving the captain hanging. Through the school hallways, students start spreading gossip about him going to destroy another club. Some students rush to see the show, and the student council president hears all the commotion. Holding her wooden sword, the brunette gives a sharp smile, thinking the guy has finally started to act. Arriving at the basketball court, our young man manages to shatter the entire backboard with just a simple dunk. The chaos continues in baseball, where he shatters the bat, and on the tennis court, he tears the net with the racket. The tennis players look on in terror at the huge crater that formed on the court floor from that impact. With that, the excited blonde girl goes around crossing off and marking a heart on the clubs they ended up destroying. The heroine celebrates the winning streak, while the big guy maintains his classic bored expression. He then turns to the girl, calmly asking how many sports clubs were still left on the list. At that moment, the student puts on a very mischievous expression, pulling out her little notebook. Acting like a true anime nerd, she pulls out a pair of glasses, pointing them towards the sky. Putting the accessory on her face, the young woman boasts that she will answer using the data she has collected so far. Staring at all that bizarre and exaggerated theatrics, the protagonist is left completely confused. Ignoring 3 options without tryouts, the remaining choices were track and field, kendo, and swimming. Analyzing the choices, the young woman explains that the track and field club improves a person's stamina. As for swimming, it was well known at the school for helping with endurance and training all the body's muscles. And finally, they had the option of kendo, which mainly served to teach discipline and strengthen the mind. With the serious face of a researcher, the blonde girl concludes her explanation, adjusting her glasses with her fingers. She proudly takes off the accessory, asking if the explanation wasn't great, but the guy just agrees. Happy with the response, she offers to be the big guy's guide again, telling him to choose the way. Curious, the protagonist suddenly asks if the heroine had ever done any acting work besides modeling. With that, she gets all flustered by his surprise question, not understanding the reason for it. Fiddling with her own hair, Rika shyly looks away, confessing that she doesn't usually talk much about it. Red as a beet, the student quietly reveals that she used to do some acting jobs in the past. Our protagonist's eyes widen in complete shock upon finally hearing that hidden truth. Breaking into a cold sweat, he looks at that girl, realizing that this important piece of information could ruin everything. To avoid straying from the manga's original plot, the boy quickly deduces that he shouldn't ask any more questions. Suddenly, the student grabs his arm, pulling him with all her strength so they can get going. Having overcome the embarrassment, the heroine smiles again, remembering they still had 3 clubs to see. Following the girl in silence, the guy gives up on investigating her past, focusing only on the present. He then chooses to start with the kendo club, making his classmates smile as she accompanies him. At the dojo's entrance, several students were whispering strange things, very impressed and super nervous. One of the members stopped fiddling with his phone, completely surprised and tense by some news that had just arrived. With his eyes wide in shock, he quickly informs everyone that the big guy had just arrived there. The blonde girl and our protagonist appear in the doorway, making the atmosphere in the place extremely heavy. A girl tries to interview him, but all her colleagues from the journalism club get terrified and back away. Taking the lead, the anime nerd with cat ears pushes the microphone away, claiming to be his manager. At that moment, the large double doors of the club are finally opened, making that classic wooden creaking sound. The freshman enters with his chest puffed out, letting out a long sigh, already expecting to get it all over with. Some students comment in low voices about how the other teams managed to survive that monster. But then something surprising appears in the dark-haired boy's vision, stealing all his attention. In a combat stance was none other than the third-year captain, ready to put an end to his mess. The upperclassmen go wild upon seeing that the ponytailed leader showed no fear of the intruder. Sighing warily, the big guy says he doesn't want to cause trouble and just wants to hear the rules of the triad. Even so, the brunette just smirks challengingly, saying she loves the style of that brute. Pointing her wooden sword, she states that whoever manages to land the first blow on the opponent wins. Holding the weapon on her shoulders, the captain seriously invites him onto the court for the two to begin. The students start to shout and cheer, super excited to see this great fight up close. Several of them take out their phones, trying to record the monster finally getting beaten by someone much stronger. Sweating nervously, our protagonist mutters in fear that they think he's some kind of video game boss. At that, the brunette orders all the surrounding students to be quiet, using a terrifying tone of voice. With a single shout, she manages to scare everyone in the hallway, leaving them completely chilled and silent. Keeping a straight face, the upperclassman reinforces that this fight will be just between the two of them in a one-on-one duel. Directing her fury at the small crowd, she says she will crush anyone who decides to interfere. Without a second thought, the spectators decide to just shut up and watch so they don't get beaten up. Realizing the full power of the dark-haired girl, the dynamic duo agrees that this upperclassman was on another level. Analyzing the opponent carefully, the big guy notices that the blonde girl had also perceived the rivals of normal strength, emanating a huge dark pressure in the form of a snake. The warrior shows that the monster will have his work cut out for him. Sighing, our protagonist asks Rika to wait outside, otherwise he would end up getting a big scolding. With that, he calmly enters the dojo, where the sun perfectly illuminated the environment and the old armors on the shelves. Standing firm on the ground, the fighter tells him to start whenever he wants, and then suggests he equip the practice armor. But our protagonist assures her that nothing there would fit his size, and out of pure rivalry, the girl says she'll do the same. Finding the upperclassman's whole attitude very noble, he picks up the wooden sword, stating he won't be responsible for the outcome. Holding her wooden sword, the girl laughs at his words, finding the idea of getting hurt very funny. With a sharp gaze, she warns that he won't even touch her uniform and tells the guy to get ready. At that, the boy kicks the weapon rack, sending several wooden swords flying through the air. Catching a weapon in mid-air, the big guy quickly defends against a surprise blow the upperclassmen tried to land. The two begin to exchange several quick blows, and the girl praises the freshman's fighting skills. But advancing with everything she has, she states that his strength means nothing against a true martial artist. Seeing his rival approaching, the protagonist prepares a strong counter-attack. swinging his sword with all his might. Then, the two clash in the center of the court, creating a large gust of wind with the force of the impact. At that exact moment, the young warrior's eyes gleam, showing that she was being very serious. With that, the girl's wooden weapon begins to glow intensely, covered by a very powerful energy. Using this mysterious force, she manages to parry the big guy's attack, sending his sword flying. Completely surprised by that turn of events, the dark-haired guy is left speechless for a second. Laughing victoriously, the brunette calls him a fool for not being able to break her simple magic defense. And without wasting any time, the captain quickly advances on her disarmed opponent, warning that this was over. But keeping his cool, the protagonist just raises his hand and grabs his weapon that was falling from above. Showing a terrifying smile and a purple aura, the young man demonstrates that the game has just begun. Upon seeing that scene, the upperclassman's eyes widen in complete shock, breaking into a cold sweat of pure terror. With a single heavy movement, the big guy attacks with everything, forcing the girl to retreat to defend herself. Trembling under the weight of that absurd attack, the leader wonders what kind of monstrous pressure that was. Staring at the girl from a distance, he realizes he almost lost and reflects on his opponent's movements. Frightened, the brunette admits to having underestimated the guy, noting that a long fight would be her downfall. Then, a huge spiritual snake appears behind her, showing that the young woman was going to focus everything on the next blow. Advancing with blood in her eyes, she uses a secret technique from her clan, shouting that this would be the end. As the deadly attack rapidly approaches, the big guy remains still, seeming completely calm. A huge explosion of light occurs when the captain's sword hits the young man's chest with full force. Even receiving the direct blow, our protagonist remains standing, feeling only the impact on his chest. Completely perplexed, the warrior wonders how someone managed to withstand her strongest attack. But soon she cracks a confident smile, stating that the guy was already practically defeated there. However, the happiness is short-lived when she realizes that something was very wrong with her sword. To her utter despair, the girl's wooden weapon simply shatters into several pieces. And with the shock, the captain is thrown backward, feeling a powerful, deadly aura hitting her with full force. Completely losing her balance, the brunette falls hard onto the court floor, completely defeated and confused. Looking at the destroyed hilt in her hand, she doesn't understand what happened, because she didn't feel any attack from him. Lifting her head, she turns completely red, sweating coldly as she finally understands what broke the sword. The guy reveals that he used only the pure strength of his pectoral muscles to destroy the girl's weapon. The next morning, the classroom is in chaos, with several students gossiping about the destruction of the clubs. They comment in terror that the kendo club suffered the most, sending its leaders to the hospital. Sitting at his desk, the boy just listens to people whispering that he wants to take over the whole school. Sweating nervously, the protagonist realizes that those rumors were getting completely out of his control. Looking at the main blonde guy, he notices that the guy is acting normally because he needs to follow the base story. Finding this great, he decides to just ignore the protagonists until his blonde friend arrives in the classroom. However, the piece is very short-lived as the classroom door is thrown open with great force out of nowhere. A short, red-haired girl enters, furiously shouting the main character's name. With a lot of anger in her eyes, she tells the blonde guy to get out of where he was and come to her right that instant. The other students are confused by the invasion and soon recognize her as a member of the sword club. Completely confused by the scene, the blonde guy asks who she was and what she wanted so early in the morning. Annoyed, the redhead accuses him of hitting her freshman and claims that the victims told her everything. The blonde tries to defend himself, saying it's a misunderstanding, while our big guy watches everything, confused. At that, a girl with a headband steps in front of the blonde guy, ready to defend her friend from the fury. Staring at the redhead, she accuses her back, stating that the freshmen from her club were the ones to blame. The redhead explains that some students from the club dragged her into an alley yesterday, and the blonde guy saved her. Hearing the whole story, the young woman with the headband accuses the kendo freshmen of being the real culprits. Crossing her arms, the defender tells her rival to straighten out her freshman, while the redhead is left feeling awkward. With a firm gaze, she reaffirms that the fault for this whole mess was not the main protagonist's. At that exact moment, the short girl lifts her face with a very intense and determined expression, pointing her finger in the guy's face. The club leader shouts, demanding that the hero be her boyfriend. The young man is completely frozen and speechless upon hearing such a sudden love confession. As for the young woman with the headband, she is paralyzed in shock, with wide eyes, trying to understand the situation. The bold girl holds the blonde's arm tightly, while our big guy watches everything, breaking into a cold sweat. Desperate, the hero's friend screams at the top of her lungs, completely denying that crazy relationship request. Watching from afar, the protagonist reflects on how the world of romantic comedies is very brutal. Beside him, his blonde classmate lets out a shriek of excitement, her eyes sparkling, full of hearts. Smiling very excitedly, the redhead praises the girl with the headband, saying she finds her very cool and amazing. Meanwhile, the other students gossip, wondering which girl the blonde guy will choose. One of the classmates bets on the hero's childhood friend, praising her sweet demeanor and her body. But another disagrees, preferring the redhead who is tough with everyone, but a sweet heart to the one she loves. Sitting at his desk, our protagonist realizes that the gossip about the love confession isn't over yet. He thinks the girl was very brave to confess in front of everyone like that. Suddenly, the blonde girl calls out to him, making the big guy turn to her, a bit confused by the question. With a mischievous smile, she asks which of the two girls her friend thinks will date the hero. The dark-haired guy looks away and replies that he has no idea, disappointing his classmate. But in his thoughts, he knows that in the original manga, the blonde would end up with his childhood friend. But the girl surprises her friend by stating that she actually knows who the hero will end up with. Winking, she reveals that in the manga, the protagonist ends up with the red-haired girl. And all excited, she explains that this will only happen if she herself gives love advice to the redhead. The big guy questions his classmate's confidence, but she brags about being the best love advisor. She exaggerates, claiming that people line up to hear her advice, but he knows it's a lie. With her fists clenched, the blonde girl gets super excited, and the guy doesn't understand the reason for so much enthusiasm. Making a cute face, the student asks her classmate to pay more attention to her and not the others. Sometime later at school, the atmosphere of gossip about the new couple was still in the air among the students. Then, our protagonist arrives in the classroom, opening the door for another day of studies. But upon entering the room, he's a little surprised by a completely unexpected scene in front of him. The red-haired girl was sitting with her arms crossed on top of one of the classroom desks. A classmate approaches and asks the big guy why the redhead was in their classroom. The friend gossips that she's trying to convince the hero to go out for lunch as an apology. He whispers that this lunch was actually just an excuse to get a date with the blonde. Then he reveals a rumor that the girl was the daughter of someone important, making the protagonist curious. The rumor said that the redhead was the daughter of the boss of a famous organization called Daosai Kai. He explains that this organization is one of the largest Yakuza groups that dominate the Kanto region. The protagonist reacts with indifference, and the classmate notices that he didn't seem surprised at all. He then says that even if it's true, it wouldn't change anything in their lives anyway. The friend is impressed by his calmness, but the dark-haired guy scowls and tells him to stop. Reflecting on the situation, the big guy remembers that they are already inside a manga world. With that, he thinks that the story of the Yakuza's daughter at school could be very real here. The redhead yells at the blonde, insisting that he accept her apology and have lunch with her. But the childhood friend steps in front, telling the girl to stop because he was uncomfortable. Very angrily, the redhead replies that it's none of her business and tells the other girl not to meddle. Meanwhile, some background characters are crying, wishing that girls liked them that way too. After that, the girl's pursuit continued for several days, giving the poor guy no rest. She even shamelessly invaded the men's locker room just to find her target, and in the hallway, the young woman corners him once again, shouting that he's going to eat with her over the weekend. Completely desperate and with no way out, the blonde protagonist just cries, begging her to stop. In the cafeteria, the blonde girl asks the big guy what his plans are for the Golden Week holiday. He replies that he's not doing anything special and will probably just help out at the family restaurant. Then the girl invites him to her house if he has free time, leaving the guy surprised. She explains the invitation by saying she has a lot of manga at home, and he asks curiously about the quantity. The young woman boasts that her father has a manga collection that could fill a bookstore. Super excited by the idea, the guy promises he'll call her as soon as he gets a chance. But suddenly, the big guy notices something strange while the two of them continue talking at the table. He notices that the blonde student seems to be thinking about something while eating her lunch. He comments that she's very slim for someone who eats so much, and the girl says that's normal. The classmate explains that if she doesn't eat a proper lunch, she ends up eating junk food all afternoon and doesn't gain weight easily. With a proud smile, she reveals that all the food she eats goes straight to her chest. Completely in shock, the dark-haired guy is left speechless upon hearing his classmate's revelation. She then calls him a pervert for looking, and the big guy realizes the whole thing was a trap she set. From a distance, another girl approaches their table, while the blonde continues to laugh mischievously. But suddenly, the blonde student's eyes go wide in complete shock at something she sees. Uninvited, the red-haired girl sits down at their table, leaving the pair completely surprised. Seeing a great opportunity, the blonde stands up, all excited, while her friend doesn't understand a thing. With a smile on her face, she turns to the newcomer and asks if her name is Tojo Karen. The redhead then asks who she is, and the young woman introduces herself as Kishimoto Rika, full of confidence. She offers to help the newcomer, who is shocked to finally recognize the girl's name. The redhead gets all red and flustered, while the blonde approaches to ask what's wrong. Stuttering, she reveals that she's heard about the upperclassmen's fame as a love advisor. She then explains that it was obvious, because the redhead is always coming to their classroom just to look for the blonde hero. Embarrassed, the red-haired girl covers the blonde's mouth, telling her to shut up. Even with her mouth covered, the student says the timing is perfect, because she wanted to talk to her too. At that, the redhead gets all embarrassed upon hearing that her classmate also wanted to give her advice. Later, the big guy walks home, thinking about how his blonde friend was having fun with everything. He remembers the girl setting up a meeting with the redhead for the next day, all excited. In the original story, it would be a love rivalry, but he feels her excitement is strange. He then decides to stop thinking about it and focus on his heavy training at his usual gym. Upon entering the place, he's confused by the loud noise and the shouts of several gym rats working out. The guy wonders why the place was so noisy and notices a familiar girl in the back. With a smile on his face, he thinks it's a huge coincidence to run into that person right there. To his surprise, the girl was none other than the captain of the kendo club he defeated. He approaches and confirms if she is indeed Fuma Yukika, the third-year upperclassman from school. The young woman explains that the club doesn't provide enough exercise, and she didn't know he trained there too. At that, he notices that all the men in the gym suddenly got super excited and agitated. He understands the guy's reaction because the girl was really very beautiful in her workout clothes. The big guy asks if she lives nearby, and the blue-haired girl reveals that she moved recently. Upon hearing the news, the protagonist cracks a smile and says that's great news for him. Suddenly, the gym owner appears and tells the guy to teach the girl how to train properly. He says it would be more comfortable for the two young people from the same school to train together alone. The old man whispers that the young lady seems to have feelings for him and tells the young man to go for it. Awkwardly, the big guy invites her to take a look around the place, thinking the owner got it all wrong. Then the trio approaches one of the weightlifting machines to start the workout. The owner suggests starting with 220 kilos, and the girl is startled by so much weight right off the bat. He guarantees that he's never seen a monster like that guy in over 20 years of experience. Without difficulty, the young man grabs the iron bar with all his strength, preparing to lift. His leg muscles contract, showing all the absurd strength he was about to use. Beside him, the gym owner just watches with a proud and satisfied smile on his face. With a single movement, the big guy manages to lift the 220 kilos without breaking a sweat. Seeing that scene, the blue-haired girl's jaw drops from so much strength. The old man says that was light and decides to increase the weight to 270 kilos. The guy lifts the new weight for 5 complete sets, leaving the two of them impressed. The owner brags, saying he warned them about the monster's strength, and the girl thinks that's an exaggeration, but she admits that his physique is not normal and calls him a monster in her thoughts. She deduces that the guy can only have the legendary Supreme Yang physique she heard about once. This rare power refers to a constitution born with the combined energy of 100 men. One theory says that famous heroes from history and mythology also possessed this physique. She is sure of this because she has already fought with him and knows that strength doesn't come from normal training. With this, the warrior decides she needs to report this important discovery to that person. The next day, the trio meets in front of a huge and luxurious Japanese-style house. The three of them enter together and are greeted by several men who welcome the young miss. The big guy wonders if her family is really from the Yakuza and why the blonde isn't surprised. He realizes that because he was reincarnated here, he still hasn't gotten used to the bizarre events of this world. One of the men stares at him, frightened, wondering who this giant with a dark aura was. Suddenly, he accuses him of being a spy from another group and tells the young woman to protect herself from him. The redhead gets irritated and tells him not to be rude, as they came there to help her. The dark-haired guy remains silent, completely confused, as he had done absolutely nothing. Later, one of the men apologizes for the subordinate's behavior towards the big guy. The young man says it's okay, and that he's already used to misunderstandings because of his appearance. However, he refuses to help, saying he wouldn't be of much help for a relationship problem. But the blonde girl scolds him, stating that a man's opinion is the most important in these cases. With a confident smile, she calls herself a love expert, and her friend gets embarrassed. All hyped up, the blonde student shouts that they are going to start a cooking class to win over the blonde guy. After a few hours of intense work in the kitchen, the girl's lunch box is finally ready. With her eyes shining with happiness, the redhead holds up the food, very proud of her work. She celebrates that this is the first lunch box she has ever made, and her classmate congratulates her. But a little earlier, the big guy had to warn her to be careful with the heat from the fire. The guy remembers the completely burnt chicken and thinks it looked like food from the underworld. Feeling hungry, he offers to prepare something quick for dinner for the two girls who are staring at him. With a determined smile, the young man tells them to leave dinner to him this time. He then starts cooking with incredible skill in a pan with a lot of fire. The two students are left with their jaws dropped, impressed by their classmates' speed and talent. In a few minutes, the fried rice dish is ready, and the two praise its delicious appearance. They taste the food and are amazed by the incredible flavor of the dish made by the guy. The blonde asks since when he knew how to cook so well, and he tells her he learned just a short time ago. He remembers that his mom would wake up in the middle of the night to make his lunch box, and he felt guilty. The young man explains that he was clumsy at first, but got better little by little over time. He then asks who prepares his classmate's lunch box, and she replies that it's her mom. Suddenly, the blonde remembers she had something to give to the redhead, who got distracted by the food. She hands over a gift and explains that she bought various makeup products that she might need one day. The young woman also wrote a note with basic care tips for her classmate not to forget. She then suggests starting by learning how to use makeup, and then going shopping when she gets the date. The blonde comments that the redhead's style is a bit strange, making the girl a little tense. With a smile, she says her friend's style looks like an old man's, making the girl annoyed. The redhead gives in and says that today, she will learn how to do her makeup to get that date. Super excited, the blonde tells her friend to wait while the two of them go do their makeup in the room. The guy asks if he'll have to wait alone, and she explains that it's a crime to see a girl's transformation. The blonde pulls the redhead into the room, leaving the big guy sitting alone, waiting for the two of them. He remembers his friend said that a man's opinion was important, but he was left behind. Later that night, the two of them head home, satisfied with the fun day they had. The guy says he hopes the redhead gets the date, and the blonde agrees, all excited. Suddenly, the protagonist stops walking, leaving his classmate a bit confused by the stop. He asks if she doesn't mind stopping at the convenience store to buy a manga magazine. The dark-haired guy picks up one of the week's issues from the convenience store shelf. The blonde asks if he buys it every week, and he confirms, saying her father was right. He asks if his classmate doesn't buy the magazine too, and if that makes her a good person. The young man agrees, and the girl gets all red and flustered by his unexpected compliment. He explains that she did her best to help her friend, and that's why she's a good person. The blonde student is left completely flushed and speechless by the guy's sincerity. The girl gets all flustered by the compliment, while the guy stares at her, confused and not understanding. Saying that it's getting late, she runs out of the store to pay for their things and leave. Alone, the big guy wonders why she ran off like that and suspects she had a stomachache. The next day at school, the atmosphere was much more hectic and full of gossip. Suddenly, several students' jaws drop, and they blush at something they see in the hallway. A very cute red-haired girl walks past them, making everyone wonder who she was. The students notice that she's heading to their classroom and finally recognize the newcomer. With an envelope in her hand, the young red-haired woman prepares for her big moment. She hands the envelope to the blonde, challenging him to a date over the weekend. But the guy doesn't recognize her and asks who she is, leaving the girl completely embarrassed. The scene opens in the bustling city of Shibuya, where the trio is out for a day of shopping. The blonde praises her friend's courage for her confession, while the redhead thanks her and asks to be called Karen. So the love guru suggests Karen call her Rika too, leaving the big guy out of it. Arriving at the store, the guy feels like he's in a whole new world, since he never goes into the woman's clothing section. He remembers he only came because his friend dragged him along to help her Paul pick out an outfit for her date. Rita quickly gets excited and points to a pretty dress in a fancy display at the clothing store. With great excitement, she pulls the little redhead by the arm, telling the girl to go try on the outfit. The blonde tosses several pieces of clothing at her friend, who gets completely lost, not knowing what to do. With a smile on her face, the young woman pushes her friend into the fitting room, telling her to hurry up and change. The red-haired girl complains that cute clothes don't suit her, but the other one has a plan. Rika leans in and says that Big Sis will take care of everything, and tells her friend to be quiet. Suddenly, the big guy hears some strange noises and wonders what they're doing in there. With trembling hands, the girl adjusts her new skirt, feeling very nervous and insecure. She comes out of the fitting room complaining that the skirt is too short, while her friend smiles, satisfied. The blonde asks her friend what he thought, and he says the outfit suited her very well. The girl blushes at the compliment, and the guy thinks about how clothes really do change people. Meanwhile, at the Tojo clan's mansion, the atmosphere was quite heavy and full of tension. In a meeting room, a serious red-haired man stares at his subordinates in silence. This man is Tojo Nado, the 6th president of the feared clan and the red-haired girl's father. Known as the Sea of Blood, he reveals that it seems his dear daughter Karen has found herself a boyfriend. Furious, the boss slams a knife on the table, startling all the men in the room. The subordinates are shocked and wonder who would dare get close to their young miss. The overprotective father yells that he won't hand his daughter over to just anyone and calls for one of his men. He asks for the boy's name, and his assistant confirms that the boy's name is Sakamoto. The man reports that his name is Ryuji Sakamoto and that he attends the same school as the young lady. He continues his report, saying he escorted the girl to a beauty salon the day before, and today, her credit card was used at several department stores to buy clothes. Based on this, the assistant deduces that the young lady has a date scheduled with the boy for the weekend. Hearing the news, the president explodes with anger and shouts the boy's name with hatred in his eyes. Still furious, he orders all men who are free over the weekend to gather there. The mission's objective is to follow the girl on her date and stop the guy from pulling any funny business. All 8 top executives and the president confirm they will participate in the crazy mission. Far away, the trio of friends is resting at a diner after a tiring day of shopping. The blonde complains that she's completely exhausted from walking through all the city stores. Even while complaining about being tired, the young woman eats her snack, and her friend stares at her, amused. The redhead thanks them for their help, and her friend says not to worry, because they're friends now. The red-haired girl says her friend helped her from the very beginning, and the other agrees it was fun. With a determined look, the young woman seems to have gained new confidence after all the support. She asks the big guy if one hamburger is enough, and says she'll pay for as many as he wants. The redhead insists, saying the food is cheap compared to all the help he gave her. The guy realizes she's not just a delinquent, and that she actually has a very caring side. The girl asks why he's staring at her, and her friend jokes, asking if she has ketchup on her face. All flustered, the young woman checks her face for any mess, and Rika asks if she's chosen a location for the date yet. The redhead confirms she's going to a cafe, and then to a movie theater, thinking that would be enough. But the blonde shouts that she's being too naive, and her friend is startled by her reaction. She explains that a regular date won't win his heart and suggests another place. With a smile, she shows a picture of an aquarium on her phone, leaving the other quite surprised. The young woman describes the place with sparkling waves and fish dancing among the colorful corals. She says the low light is perfect for conversations and for their feelings to grow stronger. Rika brags about being a love master, and the big guy has some doubts about his overly confident friend. As evening falls, the two friends finally say goodbye to the little redhead after a long day of shopping. The blonde wishes her good luck on the date, while the big guy smiles, pleased with the outcome. Thanking them for their help, the red-haired girl walks away, waving to her new friends. Then the pair waves back, watching their friend leave, all happy and confident for her date. Right after, the student asks what her friend is doing tomorrow, and he says he'll be reading comics. With a mischievous smile, the blonde invites him to follow their friend on her date, leaving the guy shocked. She says they have a responsibility to help, and he ends up agreeing, even though he thinks it's an exaggeration. Celebrating her victory, the young woman gives her friend a high five, forming a new spy duo. The next day, the sun rises on another morning that promises lots of excitement and confusion. Meanwhile, some girls on the street are surprised to see a group of very suspicious-looking men. With wide eyes, they don't understand what those strange guys are doing around there. The group's leader is the redhead's father, who has disguised himself to spy on his daughter's date. Alongside his men, the Yakuza boss stares at the place where his daughter will have her first date. A short time later, the lovebirds finally arrive at the agreed upon location for their date. The blonde guy arrives a little late and waves to the girl, calling her name excitedly. With a shy smile, he apologizes for being late and asks if she waited long. Awkwardly, the little redhead says she just got there and that he doesn't need to worry about it. At that moment, the two fall into an awkward silence, not knowing what to say to each other. To break the ice, the girl compliments the guy's casual clothes, making him all flustered. He thanks her for the compliment, and the two start walking down the street together, still a bit awkward. She then suggests they get some tea to plan the rest of the day, and the blonde guy immediately agrees. Gently, The guy takes her gift to carry it for her, while someone watches them from a distance. Hidden, the pair of friends watches the couple and notes that the girl's disguise is perfect. The blonde starts running excitedly, and the big guy yells for her to wait for him, because she's in too much of a hurry. The couple walks towards a famous cafe, and the girl comments that the place looks really nice. From a distance, the redhead's father grinds his teeth in anger, seeing the boy with his precious daughter. He freaks out because the boy made her wait for 5 minutes, and one of his men tries to calm him down. The assistant warns that they're drawing attention because civilians are looking at them suspiciously. He explains that 9 people together is too many and suggests they split into pairs to spy. The president agrees with the plan and orders everyone to move in pairs from that moment on. Inside the cafe, the atmosphere is very cozy and perfect for a first romantic date. Suddenly, a huge and delicious strawberry parfait is served at the disguised spy's table. The blonde is thrilled with her dessert, and her friend questions if she can eat all of that. With a smile, she challenges him, asking if he can't even eat a simple parfait. But the big guy notices something strange in the cafe, as several suspicious men are sitting around. He comments that the place is full of strange customers, especially middle-aged men. With this, the guy suspects that those people are somehow connected to the little redhead. In particular, he focuses on a guy in sunglasses with a scar on his face who looks very suspicious. He notices the man is wearing a weird wig, but that he somehow resembles his friend. Ignoring the spies, the couple talks excitedly about the dolphins at the city's aquarium. They agree to go see the dolphins first, as soon as they get to the big city aquarium. With a giant smile on her face, the redhead thinks that this day is going to be very fun and special. But on the other side of the cafe, the protagonist was sweating bullets, worried about what might happen. Watching all the mobsters in the place, he feels that his friend's date is going to be quite difficult. After the cafe, the whole group heads to Shibuya Station to catch the train to the aquarium. Inside the crowded train car, the redhead ends up falling asleep on the blonde guy's shoulder from exhaustion. With the pushing and shoving of the crowd, the guy is thrown against his friend, who is left speechless. Startled, the blonde shouts for people to stop pushing because she's getting squished. With her face pressed against her friend, she thinks she's never been this close to him and gets all nervous. Completely flustered, the young woman with glasses stares at the guy's face up close without blinking. The guy asks her to bear the discomfort for just a little longer because they're almost there. When the doors open, the crowd pushes everyone out, and the blonde screams, frightened. Afraid of losing her in the chaos, the big guy holds his friend's hand very tightly. He pulls her out of the train car and runs, so they don't lose the couple, who were already far ahead. They finally reach their destination in the modern district of Ikebukuro, where the aquarium is located. Panting, the guy says they barely managed to get off the crowded train. The girl in the hat gets her friend's attention, saying he was still holding her hand. The guy quickly lets go of his friend's hand, completely flustered, and apologizes for what happened. With a blushing face, she tells him to hold her hand more gently next time. The young man is surprised and wonders what she meant by next time. Suddenly, he realizes the couple has crossed the street, and they've missed the signal to cross. But he calms down and says their destination is the aquarium, so they just have to go in the same direction. On the way, they run into the disguised Yakuza gang, and the guy gets all irritated. The mobsters complain about the crowd, and the big guy recognizes the guys from the redhead's house. He wonders how he didn't think they'd be there, and decides to be more careful not to be seen. With his hood up, he tries to hide, but knows they might recognize him because of his height. The group's leader spots the pair and thinks the guy in the hood looks a bit suspicious from a distance. His assistant soon recognizes them as the young Mrs. Friends who helped her the day before. He explains that the two visited their house to help the redhead get ready for her date. The president understands and deduces that the friends are there to make sure their Paul's date goes well. At this, he decides that since he lost sight of his daughter, he'll follow her friends so he's not left with nothing. With a new mission in mind, The group of mobsters starts following the spy duo. Finally, at the aquarium entrance, the redhead is amazed by the size and beauty of the place. The blonde guy invites her in, and they enter together, eager to see the marine animals. Nearby, two guys recognize the blonde guy, and one of them gets a very angry look in his eyes. They confirm that it was that jerk Sakamoto who got them kicked out of the kendo club. The bully is furious to see his rival enjoying a date after all the trouble. With a wicked smile, he swears that this time he won't let the hero get away so easily. Inside the aquarium, the protagonist and his blonde friend watch the couple from a distance, hidden. The low light of the place makes it hard to see, but they can see the happiness of their two friends. The big guy notices one thing for sure as he spies on his classmate's date. Their date was going much better than he had imagined, and the redhead seemed very happy. Seeing the scene, he wonders if they really need to keep spying on the lovebirds. Leaving the aquarium, the couple goes to a nearby park for a romantic picnic. The girl shows off the lunchbox she prepared, full of kimbap and inari sushi, leaving the blonde guy shocked. The spy duo also takes the opportunity to eat the delicious lunch box the blonde had made. With a satisfied smile, the young woman tries the food, and the big guy agrees that everything is great. From afar, they hear the couple talking about how fun the aquarium was and how full of fish it was. With a racing heart, the redhead offers the lunch she prepared to the guy, who stares at her. The blonde notices her friend's nervousness, and the protagonist says she's anxious about his reaction. He remembers how the girl practiced for 3 days and asked for his help to make the perfect lunchbox. The girl opens the lunchbox with trembling hands while the blonde guy watches curiously. Impressed, the guy asks if she really made all of that herself and compliments the food. With a smile, she invites him to eat as much as he wants, and he starts with the rice balls. The blonde guy takes a big bite of the rice ball, while the redhead waits anxiously for his reaction. With her eyes closed, the girl tenses up, awaiting the verdict on her first lunch. The guy makes a face like he really enjoyed the food, leaving the cook more relieved. With sparkling eyes, the girl celebrates that the food turned out good, and the blonde guy agrees with her. With a smile, the redhead offers a piece of chicken to the guy, who is a little surprised. He opens his mouth and eats the chicken the girl offers, happy with the kind gesture. With her mouth full, the girl excitedly picks up another piece of food with her chopsticks. With a smile, she asked what he thought, and the blonde guy chews, satisfied with the taste. He gives a thumbs up and says that one was also very delicious. Far away, the big guy offers some food to his friend, who gladly accepts. Back to the couple, the guy offers a potato croquette to the redhead, who is left speechless. He says he's satisfied for now and that she should eat some too. The red-haired girl turns bright red, happy with the guy's kindness and affection. The spies comment that the couple is getting along very well, and the blonde agrees with a smile. Suddenly, the friend says she wants to have a romantic date like that someday too. With a serious look, the guy questions her about her knowledge as a love guru. With a mischievous smile, the blonde confesses she's never dated and learned everything from manga. Seeing that the couple is finishing their picnic, the protagonist decides to follow them. The young woman gets annoyed and starts hitting her friend, shouting at him not to ignore her and to listen. With a calm smile on his face, the guy in the hood seems to be enjoying the whole situation. The sunlight shines through the park trees, creating a perfect atmosphere for the end of the date. The couple walks side by side in a comfortable silence, enjoying the moment together. The blonde comments that they have a great vibe and that the guy will confess soon. Suddenly, the protagonist senses a strange presence and realizes something is about to happen. The blonde guy drops the gift he got from the girl on the ground and stares ahead. To the couple's surprise, the two bullies from the kendo club have appeared for revenge. With a mocking smile, they say they've been looking for the guy everywhere. The couple is completely shocked and speechless, coming face to face with the troublemakers from the club. From a distance, the spy duo is also surprised and doesn't understand what's happening. The bullies accuse him of stealing their girl and now being with a new girl. The blonde wonders if she should call the police, but her friend says he'll handle it if needed. The blonde guy asks what they want, and the bullies threaten him, saying he's going to the hospital. The protagonist recognizes the two guys as the freshmen who were kicked out of the kendo club. The redhead remembers when the bullies dragged her into an alley, and the guy saved her. They complain that they were kicked out because of him, and can't see the senior club member anymore. With rage in her eyes, the red-haired girl yells that they are complete idiots. She points at them and says that this attitude is the reason they were kicked out of the club. The bullies are surprised to finally recognize the senior member, all made up and well-dressed. One of them asks why she's all dressed up, and if she's on a date with the blonde guy. With contempt, the bully says they don't match, and that she should stay where she belongs. The girl yells at them to shut up, and that they can't talk about her like that. But suddenly, a third guy appears and says they didn't come alone this time. The bully calls his older brother to help with the revenge, leaving the couple worried. The older brother stares at the blonde guy with a confident smile and calls him bold for messing with them. The bully brags that his brother was a legend in Kitayama and is supposedly still active. The blonde guy tells the girl to run and says they're only after him, so she's safe. The older brother gets annoyed and tells him to stop playing the hero of the story. With a swift move, the delinquent forcefully grabs the redhead's arm. The girl cries out in pain, and the bully invites her to have fun with him instead of the loser. The blonde guy yells his friend's name, and the guy says he's ruining their fun. With a single punch, the hero easily knocks the bully to the ground. Far away, the protagonist gets ready to step in and tells his friend to wait for him. The girl screams her friend's name desperately, while the brother holds her tightly. The delinquent mocks the fallen blonde guy and says he's taking his girlfriend as a prize. But suddenly, a shadow appears behind the bully, who doesn't notice the danger. The big guy appears out of nowhere and asks the guy who he thinks he is to act that way. With a powerful handshake, the guy completely overpowers the bully's wrist, making him cry out from the surprise attack. He then throws him away with just one hand, leaving the two younger bullies in shock. With a furious look, the protagonist warns them to get their filthy hands off his friend. The bully gets up and asks where the guy came from, leaving his henchmen worried. Filled with rage, the bully's leader accuses him of a surprise attack and challenges him to a fair fight. He stands up and stares at the big guy with contempt, wondering what kind of training the guy has to be like that. In his thoughts, the delinquent says the guy is just a big civilian who knows how to fight a little. From a distance, the redhead's father and his men watch the whole commotion, wondering what to do. With a bead of sweat on his face, the Yakuza president watches the scene in complete silence. A little earlier, they had lost sight of the duo and were looking for them in the park. The assistant spots the fight and points it out to the boss, showing him what was happening. They see the redhead yelling to be let go, while the bully holds her with a smile on his face. The overprotective father explodes with rage and prepares to jump into the fight to save his daughter. One of his men asks if they should get their tools, but the boss tells them to wait. The president tells them not to get involved in a kid's fight and to watch the boy closely. With a dark and powerful aura, the protagonist glares at the three bullies with hatred in his eyes. The Yakuza boss feels a suffocating pressure coming from the boy and is completely shocked. He recognizes that feeling of fear and remember as a fight he had in the past against a monster. That monster was Ivan the Destroyer, the head of the Russian mafia he once faced. Upon meeting the mobster in Japan, he felt the same aura of fear and power that he feels now. That man was an overwhelming monster who inspired pure fear in his opponents. The president doesn't understand how a simple student can have the same aura as a mafia boss. Filled with rage, the protagonist decides to forget the script and protect his friends at all costs. Taking a step forward, he prepares to take out the trash in front of him. The guy in the hood tells the redhead to take their friend and get away, leaving the rest to him. She tries to protest, but the big guy cuts her off, saying he doesn't lose to guys like them. The bully gets irritated and yells at the guy not to ignore him, since he's right in front of him. With a quick step, the delinquent charges towards the protagonist at full speed. He unleashes a flurry of fast punches, but the big guy doesn't even flinch from the attacks. The henchmen celebrate their boss's speed, saying they can barely see his fists. The bully brags about his speed and says the guy couldn't even dodge his blows. But suddenly, he realizes something is very wrong with his attack and gets completely confused. The protagonist didn't even move from the punches, and the bully can't understand his iron chin. Annoyed, the delinquent prepares for an even stronger punch and lunges forward with all his might. He lands a solid punch on the big guy's face, who finally feels a bit of the impact. The blonde friend shouts her friend's name, worried about the outcome of this unexpected fight. The redhead also yells the guy's name, her eyes wide with fear and concern. With an injured face, the protagonist just stares at the bully with an empty, terrifying look. The delinquent is terrified by the guy's reaction and doesn't understand how he's still standing. With a cold stare, the big guy warns that from this moment on, everything counts as self-defense. The bully doesn't understand the threat and prepares for the next attack, unaware of the danger. With a single punch, the protagonist hits the bully's chin with absurd force. In self-defense, only one blow is allowed, and the big guy put all his strength into it. The bully's leader is sent flying from the impact of the punch and falls hard on the park ground. The henchmen try to wake up their boss, but realize he was defeated with a single blow. The three bullies are left speechless, shocked by the guy's strength and coldness. With an injured face, the protagonist warns that they touched his friends and they're going to pay dearly. The henchman threatens him, saying his dad is an important police officer and that he'll be in big trouble. With contempt, the big guy says he's going to fix their rotten brains with his own hands. He grabs the bully's head, who screams in fear, begging for his life and asking for forgiveness. With a final cry of desperation, the bully falls to the ground, defeated and with no chance to fight back. The two henchmen beg for their lives, afraid of what the protagonist might do to them. He then tells the three of them to get lost and never show their faces in front of his friends again. Terrified, they agree and run off as the blonde approaches her injured friend. The young woman panics over the cut on the guy's face, but he says he's fine. With a furious look, the girl yells that it's not fine and drags him to the nearest pharmacy. The big guy is startled by his friend's reaction and thinks he's never seen her so angry before. After treating the wound, the two walk together through the park in a thoughtful silence. From a distance, they watch the couple sitting on a bench, and the mood between them seems very heavy. With a bandage on his forehead, the guy says to give the two of them some time to talk alone. The redhead apologizes to the blonde guy, saying he got hurt because of her and her problems. But the guy says it wasn't her fault, and that the bullies were after him from the beginning. With a racing heart, the girl calls his name and prepares for the big moment. She gathers her courage and looks him in the eyes with a determined and emotional expression. With all her sincerity, the young woman confesses to the guy, saying she likes him a lot. The blonde guy is left completely speechless by the sudden and unexpected declaration of love. From a distance, the two spies watch the scene with their mouths wide open, unable to believe what they just saw. With sparkling eyes, the redhead asks the guy to go out with her and start a new romance. With a blushing face, she pleads for a chance to show her feelings and win him over. The young man is silent for a moment, thinking about how to respond to that confession. With a sad look, the guy seems to have made a difficult decision and prepares to speak. He apologizes and says he can't give her the answers she's hoping for, leaving the girl confused. She asks why, and he explains that he has his own circumstances for not accepting. The blonde guy reveals that he promised to marry a girl when he was a child and needs to keep that promise. At least until he finds that girl again, he doesn't plan on dating anyone else. Heartbroken, the redhead listens to the story, not believing what's happening. With her eyes full of tears, the young woman is devastated by the rejection from her first love. She asks if he still loves that girl, and he says he remembers liking her a lot. The guy says he cried a lot the day she moved away, and the redhead understands it was his first love. Suddenly, the girl stands up and says that if that's his decision, she'll give up. With a sad smile, she says goodbye, and that she'll see him at school next week. The blonde guy waves back with a melancholy look, watching the girl walk away alone. With quick steps and tears in her eyes, the redhead runs away from the park to cry. The blonde approaches her friend, and he asks her to go on ahead, because he needs to do something. The guy says goodbye to his friend, and says he'll see them at school next week without any explanation. With a worried look, the young woman watches her friend walk away with a serious expression. She notices he seems sad and wonders what happened to make him feel that way. At a bus stop, the red-haired girl waits alone with an empty look in her eyes. With her head down, she cries silently, thinking about how her first love ended. Suddenly, she sees a pair of shoes stop in front of her and looks up, surprised. To her surprise, the protagonist appears and asks if she's okay with a concerned expression. With her eyes full of tears, the girl can't answer and just stares at him in silence. The guy hands her a tissue and says she doesn't need to hold back, because crying is good for you. He comforts her, telling her to take a deep breath, and that crying is normal in moments like these. Embarrassed, the redhead says she's never cried in front of anyone, and her friend reassures her. Thinking about the word, friends, the girl looks at him with a different, calmer expression. She then reveals that she knew he and their friend were following them, leaving the guy shocked. He asks how long she's known, and the big guy panics at the thought of being discovered. With a smile, the redhead says that if they were worried enough to follow them, it was a good sign. She apologizes for the outcome and says she thought that if she changed, she could win the blonde guy back. She realizes there was never any room for her in the guy's heart from the very beginning. With her hand on her chest, the girl says it hurts so much she feels like she could lose her mind. The redhead confesses she's never felt this way in her entire life and looks at him. With a trembling voice and eyes full of tears, she prepares to let it all out. The young woman yells that she really loved him and starts crying desperately on her friend's shoulder. He realizes that now the girl seems like a real person and not just a manga character. Thinking it over, he notes that the same is true for his blonde friend who always helps him. The guy remembers how he always treated them like manga characters and not real people, but he wonders if he can call someone who feels pain so vividly a character. With a determined look, the big guy tells his friend to get up from the bench and stop crying. He jokes that if she stays there, the police might be called for disturbing the peace. With a tear on her face, the girl looks at him in silence, not knowing how to react to his joke. Suddenly, a smile starts to form on the young woman's face. As she finally calms down, the guy says that a smile suits her better and that she shouldn't be sad like that. Suddenly, he takes off his jacket, revealing his defined abs and leaving his friend confused. He hands her the jacket and tells the girl to put it on so they can go somewhere. The big guy takes her to a karaoke place, and the girl doesn't understand her friend's sudden idea. He explains that she's going to shout and let all her bad luck out at this fun karaoke place. The redhead tries to protest, but her friend pulls her inside the place without giving her a chance to escape. With the hood over her head, the girl finds her friend's idea very random and unexpected. Looking at his friend, the guy realizes they are the same, people with real emotions. With a smile on her face, the redhead seems to be having fun, and the big guy is satisfied. He finally understands that they are people who feel and who need support and friendship. From a distance, one of the mobsters wiped sweat from his face, moved by the scene he just witnessed. The Yakuza president says the boy is a good kid, and that he's happy he's friends with his daughter. In a world as difficult as this one, he knows that kids like the protagonist are very rare. With a smile, the boss thinks that maybe that boy will be someone very special in the future. The big guy also hopes that their paths will cross again in some other adventure. At the karaoke place, the redhead sings with all her might and tells her friend to sing louder to let it all out. She warns him that the next song is his turn, and the guy is terrified at the thought of singing. Far away, the blonde friend looks at her phone, pensive about the events of that hectic day. The next day, his blonde-haired friend shows up at the main character's house looking super excited. When she gets to his room, she's surprised and says she's never seen a boy's room before. Then she asks if every guy has so much workout equipment, and he gets all embarrassed. The girl gets curious and walks over to one of the weights lying on his floor. The young woman tries to lift the weight, but complains that she can't even budge the thing because it's so heavy. The guy explains that she wouldn't be able to lift it since it's half her entire body weight. The story then flashes back to the past, showing that the two of them always walked home from school together. On one of those days, the girl's stomach started growling really loudly on the way home. Hearing the noise, the guy asks if his friend is hungry, and she gets embarrassed. She then invites him to eat at her family's restaurant, and her friend is a little surprised. With a smile on his face, the young man accepts and says a little food wouldn't be a problem for them. The two then arrive at the main character's family restaurant, which was located above their house. Very hungry, the blonde girl starts eating the food with great enthusiasm and joy. She eats everything in sight, and the guy just watches the scene, finding it funny. With a sip of soda, the young woman seems to be enjoying every second of that amazing meal. She compliments her friend's mom, saying the food was simply sensational and so good. The boy's mother is very happy with the compliment, and the friend thanks her for the wonderful food. The main character notices that his mom really liked his friend, and that she knows how to enjoy a meal. Suddenly, the young woman pokes him in the back and says, it's time for them to go somewhere else. The guy is startled and asks where they would be going in such a hurry all of a sudden. Giving a little wink, she says it's obvious they were going to his room to talk. The scene cuts back to the present with the guy thinking he was so dumb for not suspecting her. He enters the room with some drinks and finds the girl sitting comfortably in his chair. The girl with glasses is reading one of his mangas and asks if he's into this type of story. Embarrassed, the guy says he bought the mangas as a reference for the future, trying to explain himself. She teases him and says she knows he likes Shounen manga and that he doesn't need to worry. The young woman finds a complete collection of golden sakurai and asks if he really likes the series. With their eyes shining, the two discover they have the same favorite manga and are thrilled. He shows her his collection of first editions, and the girl is blown away by the rarity of the books. The guy says the art and the ending of the manga are perfect, and that he simply loves the work. With her mouth open, the girl seems to agree with every word her friend is saying. He continues to praise the characters' minds, and she says she's never seen someone like it so much. With a smile, the young woman says her father will be super happy to hear all these compliments. She reveals that her dad is the creator of Golden Samurai, leaving the guy completely speechless. The big guy is completely floored by the revelation and wonders how he didn't figure it out sooner. He remembers that her last name is Kishimoto and that her hair isn't naturally blonde. The young man also remembers hearing that the author's wife was British, and it all makes sense. He feels like a complete idiot for not noticing the signs, even after visiting her house. Out of nowhere, the guy grabs her by the shoulders and asks if he can get an autograph from her dad. Crying with happiness, the main character thinks this is the greatest victory a fan could ever have. Our main character gets curious about one thing and asks his excited friend a question. He asks why she likes that manga so much when her father has other successful works. The young woman says she likes others, but this one has a special place in her heart for no particular reason. With a smile, she starts talking about Volume 5 of the famous samurai story. She explains that the main character of the work always puts his friends first. At that, the scene reminds the guy of him yelling at the bullies not to touch his friend, and right after, he throws a powerful punch at the delinquent to protect his defenseless classmate. The girl says the character is strong and kind at the same time, and her friend gets embarrassed. With a smile on her face, the young woman reveals that the hero's attitude reminded her of someone. The next day at school, things promise to get much more interesting for everyone. The guy goes to the student council room to talk about Golden Week with them. The president confirms and reminds him that he promised to help her throughout the holiday. She explains that the school will soon be welcoming an exchange student from Russia. The guy understands and asks if she wants help picking out a gift for the new student. With a confident smile, the black-haired girl confirms that's exactly it. He agrees to help on the first day of the holiday, as long as it doesn't interfere with his plans. The president celebrates and jokingly threatens the guy if he breaks his promise, and he looks pretty surprised. She tells him to leave, and his friend notices that the girl's mood has suddenly become very cheerful. With that, he decides he'll ask his blonde friend to postpone their meeting to the 30th. The big guy then walks back to his own classroom, which is Class 2B. In the hallway, a classmate approaches him and asks if he's heard the news. The boy mentions the troublemakers from the Kendo club who ended up getting expelled. He reveals that the two bullies requested to transfer from the school on the exact same day. The big guy just smiles and says they must have their reasons for wanting to leave the school. He thinks they got what they deserved, and that at least they won't bother his friends anymore. A new teacher enters the classroom and comments on the delay of the day's first class. She tells everyone to sit down and open their English books so they can finally start the lesson. The question in the lesson is a very simple one about which of the two fruits was cheaper. She reads the sentence out loud and nudges her friend to get her attention back on the class. The 24-year-old teacher, Ms. Mizuki, says that since today is the 24th, student number 24 gets all nervous because he knows he's going to be the one she picks. But she asks the person behind him to read, leaving the big guy completely terrified. With no other choice, the guy stands up to answer the English teacher's question. He reads the text perfectly, introducing himself as James, a student from England. Everyone in the class is shocked by the perfect pronunciation their classmate had. The teacher then asks what a good answer to the question in the book would be. The guy recommends the city of Osaka as a very good place for tourists to visit. The teacher has no reaction at all, and the main character wonders why she's making that face. She compliments the boy's perfect answer, and he scratches his head, feeling awkward about the situation. He sits down and thinks the teacher hated his answer, while his friend laughs hard at the situation. Surprised by the answer, the teacher praises him for doing very well during the class. The guy notices the teacher's weird reaction and just looks at her silently and suspiciously, all flustered. The teacher tries to explain the meaning of the question to the whole class. He realizes he was right about the new teacher's somewhat strange reaction. The guy then realizes that Mizuki seems to be a little afraid of him. He remembers the rumor that he single-handedly defeated a gang of 50 bikers, but he thinks it's the first time someone has seemed genuinely afraid of him like that. With that, he decides he's going to act as normally as he can so he doesn't scare anyone. In the teacher's lounge, the woman starts looking up the student on her computer. She keeps saying the guy's name while typing quickly on the keyboard to find him. She sees that the guy's record is perfect and can't believe what she's reading on the PC screen. Her mind comes up with theories that he's a Yakuza hair on a top-secret mission. With her imagination running wild, the teacher starts to break out in a cold sweat over her own crazy ideas. She imagines the guy with a very scary face introducing himself to her in the classroom. Suddenly, the main character walks into the room, and the teacher is startled by his visit. In his thoughts, the guy realizes that the teacher is terrified of him. The big guy says he's there for the career counseling she had mentioned earlier. With a nervous smile, the teacher tries to hide her fear and faces the boy in front of her. She invites him to sit down and asks what he's planning for his future after high school. The teacher asks if he plans on taking over his family's business someday. She imagines the guy as a Yakuza boss and panics, just thinking about it. Carefully, she asks what his parents do for a living, and he answers right away. He says they own a restaurant in Setagaya, and the teacher is very confused by this. She's very relieved by the news and says she'd love to visit the restaurant one of these days. She then asks which subjects the guy feels most confident in at school. The teacher suggests a career in a STEM field, but he says he doesn't really agree with that. She is surprised by his answer and looks at him, not understanding what he meant. The main character says he wants to do what he truly loves, not what's easiest for him. He has a trauma with engineering and says that being good at something isn't the same as loving it. The guy asks what she wanted to be before she ended up becoming a teacher at the school. She asks him to promise not to laugh at what she's about to tell him. With a smile, the teacher reveals that her big dream was to become a voice actress. The woman shares that she fell in love with a character from a robot and I'm back in school. But when she shared her dream, her old teacher advised her to give up on the idea. He said she should look for a stable job instead of a teenage hobby. At the time, she followed the guy's advice, but regretted it as soon as she got to college. The young woman realized her mistake when she saw a poster for an event with her favorite voice actress. The woman thinks that it's her life, but she let others decide her future for her. She advises him to think carefully about his choices, as someone who has been in his shoes. With a thoughtful look, the guy listens to the teacher's advice in silence, paying close attention. With a smile, the teacher finishes her advice and looks at him, waiting for a response. The guy thanks her for the advice and says he'll think very carefully about his future. Shortly after, a coworker comes over and asks about the school's famous new student. The teacher comments on the rumors about the guy being a Yakuza prince or a brawler, but the woman defends the guy, saying that all the rumors were just misunderstandings. She says the big guy is actually a super considerate and also very kind student. The man is surprised and promises not to judge students just by their appearance anymore. With a relieved smile, the teacher is happy she managed to clear up the misunderstanding. The scene changes to Golden Week in front of a very crowded temple in Tokyo. The protagonist arrives at the meeting spot and realizes he got there a little early. From a distance, he spots the student council president and calls out to her by her title. With a dark aura, the girl turns to him with a very angry expression on her face. She yells that he's late, and the guy is confused because he doesn't understand her accusation. The young woman grabs his arm and asks if he has any idea what time it is. Pointing to an imaginary watch, she continues to scold him for his supposed lateness. The guy shows her his phone and says there are still about 10 minutes until their meeting time. Awkwardly, he apologizes, and she says she'll forgive her friend just this once. In return, she points to a shop and says he'll have to buy her an ice cream. The young man is very confused by this and asks why he has to buy her ice cream. In the end, he ends up buying the ice cream anyway, and the girl is thrilled with her frozen treat. The two eat ice cream together, and he's happy that she liked the flavor she got. He then asks where they're going to buy the present, and the girl freezes on the spot. She plays it cool and says she knows where to go, and her friend realizes she forgot everything. A voice in the young woman's ear says, "There's a craft shop about 2 blocks away." The mysterious voice suggests she take the guy there to pick out a nice gift. Her assistants tell her to act naturally and use her girlish charms on him. The assistants are the family's butler and maid, who are spying on the young woman from a distance. They enter the shop and find a giant, super golden Buddha statue for sale. The shop owner suggests the statue, and the girl agrees, thinking it's a great idea. But the big guy sees the price and is floored by the 4 million that item cost. The guy gets all awkward because there's no way he can pay, while the girl doesn't even pay attention to him. The owner continues to compliment her good taste, and the young woman suddenly feels a strange chill. Over the earpiece, the maid tells her boss to stop shouting inside the shop. She reminds her that they are there for a date, not to visit temples. The assistant tells the young woman to look behind her and see the guy bored and scrolling on his phone. The maid explains that the #1 rule of a date is not to let your partner get bored. The girl panics and pulls her friend outside, saying she has something urgent to do. She drags him out of the store, and the owner shouts after his precious collection of statues. Away from the shop, the guy stops and asks if the president is feeling all right all of a sudden. Worried about his friend, he looks at her and asks if something suddenly happened to her. The girl plays it off, saying she felt a little dizzy and calls for them to go to the next place. Following her assistant's orders, she takes him to a traditional clothing store. They arrive at a shop that sells beautiful and very colorful kimonos and yukatas. The shop owner shows them a blue kimono and says it would be a great gift for his friend. The guy examines the clothing and asks for the student council president's opinion. With a superior look, she tells the owner to show them the best piece in the store, regardless of the price. The saleswoman gets excited by the challenge and prepares to show off her best merchandise. She shows off a 500,000 yen kimono, and the guy's jaw drops at the price. The girl rejects all the options, saying that none of them really suit her style. Time passes, and they're still in the store, unable to decide which gift to buy for the guy. In the end, he says the last two look good, and that the decision is all hers now. The owner then suggests that the young woman try on the clothes to help her choose. The saleswoman asks the guy what he thinks of the idea of his friend going to change now. With a smile, the lady takes the black-haired girl to the store's fitting room. In the fitting room, the saleswoman takes off a mask and reveals her true identity to her. The president is shocked to see her maid, Manami, in disguise inside the shop. The maid reveals she is a ninja and that the shop owner lent them the place. The young woman understands that it was all part of the ninja's plan to help her on the date. The assistant hurries her, saying she'll make her look beautiful, and the young woman gets a little nervous. Outside, the big guy waits, completely bored, wondering why she's taking so long. To pass the time, he plays a fighting game on his phone and ends up winning the match. With his phone in hand, the guy patiently waits for his friend to finish getting ready. Suddenly, the fitting room door opens, and a super elegant figure emerges. The guy turns completely red and is left speechless upon seeing his classmate, wearing a black kimono with flowers. The young woman asks her friend how she looks in the outfit. The big guy's jaw is on the floor, unable to answer the question his friend asked. With his face all red, the protagonist looks her up and down in complete admiration. The black-haired girl watches him in silence, waiting for a response from her friend. With her friend's silence, she starts to get a little nervous and insecure about the outfit. After a moment, the guy finally manages to say something to her. He says she looks stunning, and the young woman is surprised to hear the compliment from her friend. The guy adds that the outfit suited his classmate perfectly. All flustered, the protagonist looks away, not knowing what to say after that. With a triumphant laugh, she boasts about her beauty, and her friend just agrees with her. Excited, the girl says she's going to try on the yukata and asks him to wait a bit. The fitting room door closes, and the guy goes back to playing his game on his phone again. Inside the fitting room, the young woman is all sweaty, with her heart beating very fast. With a red face, she touches her cheeks, thinking about the compliment her friend gave her. She wonders what to do, as she wasn't expecting that reaction from her classmate. From a distance, the student council president and her assistants watch our main character. Just then, the guy and his classmate walk past them, and the maid is shocked by the scene. The black-haired girl thinks about how her friend stands out and how they arrived by train together. He then says he'll call a car for them to go to lunch, and she is stunned by the luxury. The guy notices they're drawing attention and suggests they hurry up a bit. He then notices a strange movement behind him and asks what that was all of a sudden. But the young man sees a couple taking a selfie and thinks they weren't taking pictures of them. The girl's two assistants move away, playing it cool as if nothing happened. The maid, Manami, is nervous and sweating bullets because they were almost discovered by her boss. The vice president complains that she got too close and that they almost got caught red-handed. He says he needs good photos for his report, while Manami calls him a lucky brat. The woman warns him not to let his dislike for the guy show in front of the girl. With that, the two students arrive in front of a ramen restaurant for lunch. The guy says that this is his favorite place, and the young woman seems a little surprised by the choice. He tells her to take her time choosing and says he's going to the restroom real quick before they eat. Suddenly, the girl's butler feels a sharp pain in his stomach and freezes up. The maid asks what happened, and he says his stomach started hurting out of nowhere. He then blames the ice cream he had earlier, and his friend tells him to go to the restroom right away. In a lot of pain, the man rushes to the restroom, saying he can't hold it in any longer. He runs to the men's restroom to relieve the stomach ache that came out of nowhere. A moment later, the butler comes out of the restroom, relieved and with a huge, happy smile on his face, but he comes face to face with the protagonist, who was also leaving the restroom at that moment. The man with glasses points at the guy and calls him by his name, leaving the boy very confused. The restaurant door opens, and the student council president gets ready to greet her friend. With a smile, the young woman says he's finally back, but the scene leaves her speechless. She is shocked to see the guy entering the restaurant with her 2 assistants by his side. He explains that he ran into them by chance and invited them to eat as a thank you. The girl gets annoyed with the 2 of them and wonders what happened to her romantic date. They all sit together at the same table, and the atmosphere becomes completely awkward and tense. The president apologizes for her brother, and the maid calms her down, telling her to act naturally. With that, the food arrives, and a steaming bowl of ramen is placed on everyone's table. The young woman stares at the food, and the guy asks why she's having such a strange reaction. He asks if it's her first time eating ramen, and she says she's only seen it on TV. The butler shouts that the question was rude, but the maid thinks that she eats ramen all the time. Not caring about the argument, the black-haired young woman tries the hot noodles. With a smile, the protagonist asks if the food is to her liking and keeps watching her. With a blushing face, the girl says the food is delicious and continues eating peacefully. He's happy she liked it, and the young woman enjoys every moment of her meal there. The guy offers to pay for everything, and the butler says he'll eat the rest for her. After lunch, the group of friends heads to an arcade to have some fun. At the claw machine, the claw fails to grab the bear, and the president gets very sad. She complains that she almost got it, and the maid offers to get the bear for her boss. Meanwhile, the 2 guys are playing a fighting game, and one of them seems to be winning. The vice president celebrates his victory, and the protagonist is annoyed with his loss in the game. The big guy thinks the butler is making fun of him and vows to take down his rival. With a smirk, the man with glasses thinks the guy is an idiot and that he'll make him pay. The protagonist says he still has credits and challenges him to another round of the fighting game. In the new match, the butler's character lands a kick on the opponent and starts his combo. With a sequence of hits, the protagonist's character is thrown across the screen. With no chance to defend, the guy loses the match and is shocked by the humiliating defeat. He can't believe he lost again, and his rival starts making fun of his lack of skill. Suddenly, the man with glasses gets serious and stares at the young man with a challenging look. He calls the protagonist by his name, and the guy turns around, surprised by the change in attitude. The butler points to a machine and says they'll settle their differences right there. He says that real men settle things physically, not with fighting games. With a confident smile, the man in the suit starts to unbutton his dress shirt right there. He reveals a muscular and defined body, leaving the protagonist completely shocked. The guy's jaw drops, and he wonders how his rival hid all those muscles. The 2 girls get embarrassed, and the maid complains about her idiot brother's attitude. The butler says the guy accepted the challenge, but the young man denies it, saying he never agreed. He then asks if the guy was eager to see his muscles up close like that. With a teasing smile, the rival says he's disappointed with his classmate's attitude. With an air of superiority, he calls him a coward for running from a challenge like that. He then tells the guy to pay close attention to what's going to happen next at the machine. With that, the man in the suit stretches in front of the punching machine, all confident and ready. With a battle cry, he prepares to throw the strongest punch of his life at the target. Just then, the rival's fist hits the machine with impressive force and speed. The machine shows a score of 960 points, and the girls celebrate the new record. With a smile, he calls him over and says it's now his friend's turn to show his full strength. The guy tries to get out of it, but the president says she's curious to see his real strength. Under pressure from his friends, the guy cries but agrees to try to break the rival's record. With no choice, the young man gets ready and wonders how things got to this point. He thinks that the score doesn't matter and that the real problem is something else entirely. The problem is that his body is like a gag character's, with super exaggerated muscles. With a dark aura, he thinks that if he punches with full force, he'll destroy the machine completely. With no other option, he decides to go all out and that he can't hold back anymore in that place. With a swift movement, he throws his fist with all his might against the punching machine. The punch glows intensely and gets ready to hit the target with precision and force. The rival is surprised by what happened and stares at the protagonist, not understanding the scene. The punch hit the machine's iron frame instead of the pad, denting it. The machine's score doesn't register anything and shows 0, leaving everyone confused by the error. The maid complains that he missed the target and that he needs to work on his aim. Relieved, he thinks that at least he didn't break the record and that he'll pretend he missed. Suddenly, he notices something strange with the machine and freezes at the sight. The machine's punching bag comes loose and falls to the floor with a dull, heavy thud. With that, the pad lies on the floor, and an awkward silence fills the entire place. The butler stands there, staring at the broken machine, not knowing what to say to his friend. With a serious look, the man in sunglasses adjusts the accessory on his face in silence. He then declares that today's match has ended in a draw for the two guys. The rival says he'll win next time, but the guy is just relieved the scene is over. Things got a little noisy, so they decide to change locations and take a walk. To celebrate, he suggests they all take some pictures together as a memento of the day. Excited, the girls agree with the idea and think taking pictures will be a lot of fun. With that, the guy calls everyone into the photo booth to start the session. The first photo shows everyone smiling and making fun poses for the camera. In another photo, the butler is playfully putting his arm around his sister's neck for a pose. They use bunny ears and other funny props for the group's next photo. With colorful and differently shaped sunglasses, they pose for the camera together. A montage shows all the fun photos the group took in the photo booth. The president says the photos turned out great, and the maid agrees excitedly. The final photo shows the group having fun and smiling together like happy good friends. With a smile, the young woman says that was a lot of fun and looks at the photos fondly. He then suggests they end the day with a lively and loud karaoke session. With that, everyone agrees and follows the guy to the big city's karaoke building. The butler starts singing with a lot of passion and energy on the karaoke stage for everyone. The black-haired girl gets on stage and sings elegantly for all her friends. With her eyes closed, the young woman enjoys the music and sings with her heart and soul. The guys give her a thumbs up and cheer her on as she sings her favorite song of the moment. Soon after, the two sing a duet together and smile at each other on the karaoke stage. With a radiant smile, the young woman enjoys the special moment with her school friend. The guy also seems to be having a lot of fun and sings with a happy smile on his face. At night, the guy says goodbye and asks everyone to get home completely safe. In the car, the president thanks him and says she had a lot of fun with them all day. The two assistants are exhausted and shocked by the hectic day they had together. The young woman asks what happened, and they suddenly apologize to their boss in the car. They explain that they had so much fun, they forgot to leave the place earlier. The black-haired girl stares at the two of them in silence and without any facial expression. With a gentle smile, she doesn't seem to mind the two friends' small mistake. She says it's okay and that she had much more fun than she expected on the date. The young woman remembers all the fun moments she spent with her dear friend. She remembers when they talked while shopping for the kimono together. Inside the car, the young woman looks at the photos and says everything made her truly happy. The black-haired girl remembers when she was a child and used to play with her two assistants. She thanks the two of them for always being by her side all these years. With a grateful smile, The young woman bows, and the two are moved by the scene. Emotional, the two assistants cry upon hearing their boss's kind words. They hug her and say they will serve her for their entire lives, no matter what happens. With a smile, the young woman asks if they will help her properly on the date next time. With the car speeding, the assistants promise they'll make the date a success. The scene changes to a man drawing in his studio with great concentration on his work. The man is the father of the protagonist's blonde friend, and he works as a famous mangaka. Sitting at his desk, he draws his new manga with skill and a lot of talent. His blonde daughter enters the room and calls out to him excitedly with a smile on her face. The young woman asks if he remembers that a friend of hers is visiting him the next day. With a smile, the man says he remembers, and that he's looking forward to meeting the guy. He says he's curious to meet the boy his daughter has been talking so much about lately. The next day of Golden Week, the protagonist goes to his blonde friend's house again. Nervous and sweating, the guy prepares to meet his idol from the world of manga. The mangaka greets him with a smile and says he looks like a Shounen manga hero. The young man is speechless as he faces the creator of his favorite work of all time. In his mind, he calls him the god of manga and reveres him with admiration and great respect. The man invites him in and says his wife has prepared a special meal. The girl's mother welcomes them and calls them to eat before the food gets cold on the table. With a table full of food, the protagonist is shocked by the feast. Everyone sits down to eat together, and the guy gives thanks for the wonderful meal. The mangaka comments that his daughter hasn't stopped talking about the guy lately, and he blushes. He says he wanted to meet him because it's the first time his daughter has gotten close to a boy. The guy gets nervous and tries to clarify that there's nothing serious going on between him and his friend. He says they are just friends, and his classmate complains that he shouldn't say that at the table. He apologizes, and the young woman's father laughs at the situation while the mother defends their guest. In his thoughts, the guy starts to imagine what it would be like to have a daughter like his friend. With a blushing face, he thinks he would see all the boys who approached her as wolves. The mother scolds her husband and asks him to stop saying strange things in front of the guy. The young woman looks at her friend and asks if he's suddenly okay, staring at him. He says everything is fine while the girl's father looks at him with a mysterious gaze. The young woman's parents comment on how their daughter has grown and is already leaving the nest. With a smile, the man remembers thinking his daughter would be a child forever. A memory shows the young woman as a little girl running happily towards her father. She says she's going to marry him when she grows up, and the man is moved by the scene. With tears in his eyes, the mangaka gets emotional remembering his daughter's promise. His wife laughs at her husband's reaction, and he gets embarrassed by the scene in front of everyone. The man then reveals he heard that the guy is a big fan of his work and his creations. He invites him to see his studio, and the young man accepts the invitation. All excited and happy, in a hallway of the house, the guy and the blonde girl walk towards the mangaka's studio. The young man is very happy because he's going to see the studio and get an autograph from his idol. He says that his friend's father is the artist he respects most in the world of manga. The blonde-haired girl opens her bedroom door and invites him to come inside. The guy is shocked to see that his friend's room looks like a manga library. She asks him to wait while she gets some tea, and the young man starts looking at the shelves. Before leaving, she warns him not to touch anything, or she'll get very mad at him. Alone in the room, he thinks it's his first time in a girl's room and feels strange. To pass the time, he decides to play a game on his phone while he waits for his friend. Suddenly, the young woman's mother enters the room, and the guy is startled by the unexpected visit. He calls her Mom, and the woman asks him to call her Maria to make it easier. Awkwardly, he asks what she's doing there, and the woman says she came to show him her daughter's past. With a smile, she shows a photo album of the young woman to her daughter's friend. She shows photos of her daughter as a baby, and the guy is curious to see the rest of the album. She finds a photo of her daughter at an anime convention, and the guy is surprised by the scene. The woman reveals she used to be a cosplayer, and the young man thinks she has no shame. With a smile, the woman says she found her daughter's true dark past. The photo shows the young woman in a gothic cosplay, and the guy is shocked by the image he sees. The blonde-haired girl enters the room and yells at her mother when she sees the scene in the album. She asks if her mom showed the photo to her friend, and the woman confirms it with a smile. With an awkward smile, the guy thinks his friend is very strange and pretty weird. She tries to explain, saying she doesn't cosplay anymore and that it was a mistake from the past. The mother says goodbye and leaves the room, leaving the two young people alone and embarrassed. With a tense atmosphere in the air, the blonde-haired girl kneels on the bedroom floor. She asks her friend to keep it a secret, and he agrees, saying he has no one to tell. With tears in her eyes, the young woman is embarrassed by the situation and looks at her friend. He tries to comfort her, telling her not to be so embarrassed about the cosplay photo. The guy says everyone goes through that phase, but she asks if he's ever done something like that. He reveals he was also pretty bad in school, and his friend is surprised by the confession. The young man asks if she wants to see a picture, and his classmate agrees, curious about the image. He finds the photo on his phone, and the young woman gets closer to see the image on the screen. The guy shows the photo to his friend, and she is shocked by what she sees on the phone screen. With wide eyes, the blonde-haired girl stares at the photo, unable to believe what she's seeing. The photo shows the guy in an exaggerated pose with very flashy rocker clothes. She asks how he got so muscular, if he was so skinny and nerdy back in school. He explains that he felt weak and started working out before entering high school. She jokes that if she had met him earlier, she would have seen that version of him in person. Without thinking, the young woman says she likes him much more the way he is now, and is surprised by her own words. With a red face, she realizes what she said and covers her mouth, embarrassed by the confession. The guy blushes and calls her name, not knowing what to say to his friend. All of a sudden, the two fall silent, and a romantic atmosphere begins to develop between them in the room. With a racing heart, the young woman looks at her friend, unable to look away. The guy also seems to be feeling the same way, and looks at her with his face all red. The blonde-haired girl tries to say something, but the words won't come out of her nervous mouth. The guy slowly moves closer to her, and the mood between them becomes more and more intense. She says she only sees him as a good friend, and the guy is surprised by the declaration. With a red face, he agrees and says that they are just really good friends. The two smile awkwardly and try to brush off the strange mood that has formed between them. The guy scratches his head, and silence once again fills his blonde-haired friend's room. He calls her name, and the young woman answers without being able to look directly into her friend's eyes. With a smile, he thanks her for inviting him to meet his idol and her father. The young woman says she will cherish that day as a memory for the rest of her life. With a gentle smile, the protagonist agrees with his friend and looks at her fondly. He says he'll come back to visit her, and the blonde-haired girl smiles at the promise. As evening falls, the young woman says goodbye to her friend and says he could have stayed a little longer. He says he's already stayed too long and that he needs to go home for dinner with his family. He reminds her of her family trip, and she says they are going to Hawaii the next day. He wishes her a good trip, and she jokes that he'll be missing her soon. He promises that if anything happens, he'll help her, and she asks how he would get to Hawaii. In his mind, the guy imagines he could swim there with his superhuman strength. He says he would buy a plane ticket, and his friend laughs at his sensible and logical answer. With a wave, the young woman says goodbye, and he watches her with a smile on his face from a distance. With a smile, he says goodbye, and the two promise to see each other at school after her trip. With a blushing face, the young woman looks at her friend and seems to be falling for him. With a racing heart, she watches him walk away and feels something different for him right there. Alone on the street, the guy thinks about how things suddenly got serious between them. A memory shows the day the guy found his friend lost at the train station. They eat together on a bench, and she compliments the food his mother prepared for them. Another memory shows the two of them reading together, and she compliments him for being a good person. With a blushing face, the blonde-haired young woman looks at him with admiration and affection in her eyes. On the crowded train, he protects her from the crowd so she doesn't get hurt on the way. With a red face, she thanks her friend for his kindness and looks at him with admiration. In another scene, he holds her hand so they don't get separated in the event's crowd. With a smile, the guy remembers the moments he spent with his friend and is happy about everything. The young woman watches him in silence and seems to be falling more and more in love with her friend. With a smile on her face, the blonde-haired girl looks at her friend with a loving gaze. On the 5th day of Golden Week in Akihabara, things promise to get even more hectic. Alone in the city, the protagonist walks through the bustling streets of Akihabara. He thinks he's already bought all the manga he needed and checks his phone again. Feeling hungry, he decides he'll find a place to eat before heading home. The guy thinks about going to his favorite ramen restaurant to have lunch by himself in the city. Suddenly, a blue-haired girl runs past, shouting for him to get out of the way. Not understanding what happened, the young man turns and looks at the girl who ran past him. The blue-haired young woman nimbly jumps over a wall and continues running through the city. With a leap, she dodges obstacles and continues her desperate escape through the streets. The guy is confused by the scene and tries to understand what's happening on the street. Accidentally, the blue-haired young woman trips and falls on top of the protagonist. With the girl's face in his, the guy is shocked by the unusual situation. With a bloody nose, the protagonist wonders why this happened to him. He gets up annoyed, and the blue-haired girl also seems to be very angry. She accuses him of not getting out of the way, and he complains that she was the one who fell on him. A group of men in suits approaches and calls the girl by the name Sasha out of nowhere. She asks the guy for help, and he is confused by the stranger's sudden request. With no time to explain, she pulls him by the hand, and the two of them start running away together. He calls out to her and says they're running into a dead-end alley in the middle of the city. The blue-haired girl leads him to a ramen restaurant, and the two enter the place. The men in suits also enter the restaurant, and the guy gets tense with the chase. Hiding behind the counter, the two of them watch the men searching for them in the place. Scared, the girl huddles behind the guy, and he looks at her, not understanding the situation. She thanks him for his help, and he asks why she was being chased on the street. She introduces herself as Sasha and asks for his name as they sit down to talk. The guy says his name is Kim Yu-sung, and she is surprised that he isn't Japanese. He gets irritated and asks who the men were and why they were after her. The young man tries to leave, but the blue-haired girl stops him and asks him to wait. He says this isn't his problem, but the young woman insists, desperate for his help. She then offers him money in exchange for his help, and the guy is shocked by the proposal. The girl shows a large amount of money, and he is left speechless by the sight. He accepts the deal and thinks that in the end, everything can be solved with money somehow. The young woman agrees and says she can't hide the truth from him anymore after everything. She reveals that her father is an important person in a place called Luxia in her country. The guy is confused by the revelation and looks at her, not understanding what she means. With a serious expression, the blue-haired girl begins to explain the whole situation. She says those men were trying to abduct her because of her important father. The guy recognizes the girl from a famous anime and is shocked by his discovery. He realizes she is one of the main heroines of the anime and is completely speechless. The two leave the restaurant and go to a clothing store to give the young woman a disguise. In a new outfit, the girl asks if the new look is good enough for her to be in disguise. He says the clothes are easier to move in, and she hires him as her bodyguard. She says he only needs to protect her until 7 in the evening, and the guy is surprised. He asks if she isn't scared, and she says it's easier to lose them in crowded places. The young woman explains they won't act in front of civilians, and the guy agrees with the plan. The narration reveals that the girl is Alexandra Romanova, a Russian character. She was supposed to have met the story's protagonist, but ended up meeting the guy instead. He wonders if the story is taking place before her official debut in the anime. The young man doesn't know if he should interfere, but decides to help the blue-haired girl for now. In his thoughts, he wonders if she's trying to buy him off with dirty money. He wanted to say he wouldn't accept, but the amount of money made him change his mind. With a sigh, he accepts the mission, and the girl watches him with a smile on her face. She thinks she's good at reading people, and that the guy seems to be a strong person. The young woman observes the guy's muscles and is impressed by his apparent strength. She believes he'll be able to protect her for 6 hours without any problem. Back on the streets, the girl says they need to keep moving so they aren't tracked. Suddenly, the men in suits appear, and the guy is shocked by how fast they are. He asks if they are ex-KGB agents, and she is confused by the strange name he said. The two start running again, and one of the men gets close to attack the guy. The man tries to land a punch on the protagonist, but he dodges with agility and speed. With a quick movement, the guy dodges, and the man is surprised by his reaction. The man in the suit glares at the guy angrily and prepares for a quick counter-attack, but the protagonist lifts him with ease and prepares to throw him forcefully to the ground with one move. The guy throws him to the ground, and the other men are shocked by the scene. The blue-haired girl's jaw drops, and the guy turns to her, surprised. He pushes her to a safe place and tells her to hide while he handles things. The guy closes the door to protect her and prepares to face the other men. He thinks the men are stronger than the street punks he's used to. The group of men in suits advances towards the guy to attack him all at once. But he knows that in romantic comedies, the strongest character always wins in the end. With a powerful punch, the guy hits one of the men and takes him down with a single blow. In a short time, all the men are on the ground, and the guy prepares for the next one. He thinks that at this level, he can handle all of them without much trouble. With a determined look, the guy faces the next opponents with total confidence. Another man attacks him, but the guy dodges easily and prepares to counter-attack. With a glow in his fist, he prepares to land a powerful blow on the enemy. Suddenly, the men's captain appears and looks at the guy with a super serious expression. The man wonders who the idiot is that's attacking him out of nowhere and glares at him angrily. The guy realizes the captain is stronger than he thought and stays on alert. He wonders if his romantic comedy buff will work against this man. The blue-haired girl watches the scene worriedly, and the guy continues to stare at the captain. She says that no matter how strong he is, he won't be able to beat Captain Boris. With a confident look, the young woman believes in the captain's victory and his strength. The guy understands why she was so confident and decides not to underestimate rich girls anymore. With a determined look, he decides he's going to end the fight quickly and gets ready. With a swift movement, the guy rushes towards the captain for a surprise attack. The captain is startled by the young man's speed and tries to defend against the quick blow. With a powerful punch, the guy hits him square on, and a dark aura surrounds the fight. He grabs the captain's face firmly and looks at him with a challenging smile. The young man prepares for his next move, and the captain is surprised by his strength. With a quick move, he grabs the captain's arm and prepares for an armbar. With a judo throw, the guy slams the captain to the ground with great force and skill. The young man feels a pain in his shoulder and realizes the captain is tougher than he looks. He wonders what that is and realizes the captain is trying to resist the move. With a punch to the stomach, the captain tries to break free, and the guy accidentally calls him Dad. With a smile, the man in the suit gets up and faces the guy with a defiant look. He prepares to attack, but the guy stops him with a quick and precise move. With a lead sweep, the young man takes him down again and immobilizes him on the street floor. The captain complains about the joint lock, and the guy smiles at the victory he's about to have. In pain, the man yells that his hip joint is hurting a lot from the move. He asks if the guy is trying to cripple him, and the young man throws him away with force. The captain falls to the ground, defeated, and the guy stands up victorious from the intense fight. The blue-haired girl is shocked to see Captain Boris defeated so easily. The other men are also surprised, and look at the guy with fear and admiration. Captain Boris is on the ground, out cold, and the guy looks at him with a scornful gaze. He complains that joint injuries are serious and that he won't be able to go to the gym. The blue-haired girl can't believe he actually defeated Captain Boris all by himself. In her thoughts, she wonders how someone can be so strong and powerful. The scene changes to a dark, abandoned warehouse somewhere in the big city. A blue-haired man answers the phone and seems to be getting news about the mission. He confirms his identity and hears that Captain Boris Zarov has been defeated in combat. The man doesn't believe the news and says it's impossible for anyone in Japan to beat the captain. The informant describes the guy, and the blue-haired man starts to suspect something. He wonders if this guy is the famous Black Yasha, a legend of the criminal underworld. With a serious look, he repeats the name and starts to believe in the possibility of his return. On a computer, a message pops up asking if the Black Yasha has really returned. The reply says that rumors are spreading all over Tokyo about what happened. With a click of the mouse, someone starts to research the topic more on the internet. A black-haired woman reads the messages and wonders if the Black Yasha is really that strong. With a serious look, she thinks that the rookies know nothing about the legendary fighter. She remembers the God of Fist tournament from 1999 and a certain fighter. The God of Fist is a blue-haired man with a beard who exudes power and total confidence. That's when Fuma Kotaro, a mysterious ninja, appeared out of nowhere for the fighting tournament. He fought only once, but managed to reach the finals and became a legend. With a thoughtful look, the woman stares at the computer and reflects on the fighter's legend. She wonders if it's true that the legendary Fuma Kotaro has really reappeared out of thin air. With her hands on the desk, the woman stands up and prepares to leave her office. She puts on her jacket and seems determined to investigate the case personally. With her hand on the doorknob, she prepares to open the door and go out into the city streets. The black-haired woman leaves her building and looks at the city with a very serious expression. She thinks of her father and seems to have a mysterious connection to the legendary fighter. The scene changes to a maid cafe where the employees are welcoming the customers. The guy is embarrassed by the scene, and the blue-haired girl watches him in silence. He complains that she took him to a maid cafe, and she says it's a must-do in Japan. One of the maids leads them to a table and calls the master, with a smile on her face. He complains about being in a den of otakus, and she says they are safe for now. With a strange feeling, the guy looks at the menu and feels uncomfortable in the place. He asks why he can't show his face, and she says it's because of an EMP. She explains that the combat squad turns off electronics before an operation. The young woman reveals that they work for the Easter Egg Company, an arms company in Loxia. With a smile, she reminds him that she's the daughter of someone important and calls him master. A maid with cat ears approaches and introduces herself as the star of the cafe. The blue-haired girl gets excited, and the guy thanks her for the food, embarrassed. The maid says they need to do a ritual before eating, and the guy gets tense. She asks them to repeat what she's going to say, and the young man feels like something bad is about to happen. With her hands in a heart shape, the maid prepares for the cafe's food ritual. With a cute pose, she says a few words, and the guy is horrified by the scene. He refuses to do the ritual, and the maid says it's a mandatory policy of the cafe. With a red face, the guy has no choice and prepares for the embarrassing ritual. With his hands in a heart shape, he repeats the maid's words, completely embarrassed. The blue-haired girl laughs at the scene, and the maid finally lets them eat in peace. Exhausted, he eats the food and admits that it tastes very good despite all the embarrassment. The maid comes back and asks if their meal was to their liking with a smile on her face. She says that whoever finishes last will get a penalty, and the guy gets scared. With a smile, the maid shows a cat ear headband, and he panics. The penalty is to wear the ears and end every sentence with a cat's meow. He asks if there's another option, and the blue-haired girl says he just has to win. Determined not to lose, the guy faces the blue-haired girl with a look of challenge. The two start playing cards, and the competition between them at the table gets intense. In the end, the guy loses and is forced to wear the cat ear headband as a penalty. Embarrassed, he refuses to speak, and the blue-haired girl encourages him to just meow already. Furious, he accepts another round, and the blue-haired girl laughs at his face. She teases him, saying the ears don't suit him, and he promises to win next time. At the end of the day, the maid says goodbye, and the guy leaves the cafe exhausted and utterly defeated. The blue-haired girl celebrates her victory, and the guy complains that he didn't win a single time. She says it's almost 5 in the afternoon and asks if he doesn't want to see the sights. The two walk together down the street, and an awkward silence falls between them. Suddenly, the blue-haired girl says she needs to confess something to the guy. She reveals that the men he fought earlier were actually her bodyguards. With a sad look, the young woman apologizes for lying and explains the whole situation. She says he can leave and that she'll call her guards to go back to the hotel. A helicopter approaches, and the blue-haired girl thanks the guy for his help. With a smile, she says goodbye and prepares to leave in her father's helicopter. Suddenly, the girl's father appears in the helicopter and calls out to her with a smile on his face. The guy is shocked to see the blue-haired, bearded man in the young woman's helicopter. With a hand on the table, someone prepares to jump from the helicopter to the city street. A man jumps from the helicopter and lands in front of the two young people with a dull thud. The girl's father says she put on quite a show and that they didn't have to look far. He glares at the guy and asks who the man is who dares to approach his daughter. Sasha asks how he found them, and the man completely ignores her on the street. He says it's a personal matter between him and his daughter and glares at the guy angrily. The girl's father says this is a personal matter and glares at the guy angrily. Sasha tries to defend her friend, saying it was her fault for running away from the hotel. The guy realizes that the blue-haired man is the girl's father and is surprised. He wonders why a guy from Luxia is speaking Japanese with his daughter. The man says he heard the Black Yasha has reappeared in Tokyo and looks at the guy. He asks if his daughter's Japanese bodyguard has anything to do with the legendary fighter. The girl's father remembers that 10 years ago, the legendary Black Yasha vanished without a trace. With a serious look, he calls him Fumakotaro, and the guy is confused by the name. Pointing a finger at the young man, he challenges him to a fight right there on the street. He yells that they're going to finish the fight they started 18 years ago once and for all. Not understanding, the guy introduces himself, and the blue-haired man looks at him, confused by the scene. He asks if the young man knows Fumakotaro, and the guy denies it right away, saying no. After an awkward silence, the girl's father seems to reconsider his accusation. He says he'll spare him from being disowned for now and looks at him with a serious gaze. The guy thinks there's been a mistake and that he has nothing to do with Fumakotaro. Suddenly, the man asks how he managed to defeat his captain, Boris, on the street. He's referring to the big man he fought earlier, and the guy apologizes. The young man says he thought he was an abductor, which is why he didn't go easy on him in the fight. Taking a step forward, the girl's father prepares to attack the guy in anger. With a powerful punch, the blue-haired man charges towards the protagonist with everything he's got. The guy is surprised by the speed and force of the attack and tries to defend himself. With a muscular arm, the girl's father shows his strength and looks at him with a smile. Sasha screams her friend's name, worried about the fight that's about to happen. With a punch to the guy's backpack, the man destroys the manga he had bought. The young man is shocked to see his new manga completely destroyed by the blow. The girl's father says this is interesting and asks the guy to show him his full strength. Furious about the destruction of his manga, the protagonist glares at the man with rage. With tears in his eyes, he yells that he'll never forgive him for destroying his manga. The two stare each other down and prepare for a serious and emotional fight in the street. With a powerful punch, the guy attacks the girl's father, and a purple aura surrounds them. With a swift movement, the young man lands a direct hit, and the blue-haired man goes flying. The girl's father prepares to counterattack, and the two exchange intense blows. With a powerful kick, the man hits the guy, but he manages to defend against the blow. With his feet on the ground, the protagonist recovers and faces his opponent with determination. The girl's father is impressed by the young man's strength and compliments his skill. He asks why the guy is doing this all of a sudden and looks at him with curiosity. The man says he's an exceptional genius, and the guy is confused by the compliment. He says that an untrained student defeating his right-hand man is something impressive. Punching the air, the girl's father says that should be impossible. He calls him a prodigy and says he might be a talent that comes around once every 100 years. With a bruised face, the guy looks at the man and wonders what he wants from him. With his fist glowing, the girl's father prepares to make a proposal to the young man. He invites him to work for him and looks at him with a confident smile on his face. The man promises he will help him develop his full talent if he accepts. The guy realizes that the world of scramble love is not an ordinary romantic comedy. He understands that the story has turned into a battle webtoon and is shocked by the discovery. The man's proposal seems to have come straight out of a Shounen battle manga. At first, the story seemed like a normal romantic comedy, but things have changed. The reason he was brought into this world and trained so hard was to fight. The reason he always gets involved in fights is because of the genre shift. It all leads to a single conclusion about the true purpose of this love story. The series changed direction and became a battle manga instead of a romantic comedy. He's sure of it because the work's publisher is Jamks, a battle manga magazine. In a magazine like Jamks, a pure romantic comedy would be a losing battle. The author must have given into pressure and changed the genre to a battle manga with fights. If that really happened, the guy realizes his life is in constant danger. He's going to keep being surrounded by dangerous monsters like that strong man there. The girl's father asks what he thinks of the proposal and offers him many benefits. He promises to pay his college tuition, a house, a car, and anything else he wants. With his fists clenched, the guy prepares to give his answer to the blue-haired man. With a confident smile, the guy prepares to accept the blue-haired man's offer. The girl's father is surprised by the young man's unexpected answer and stares at him in silence. With a determined look, the guy says that if the series is a battle won, the old man is going to lose. He believes the girl's father is destined to lose to the protagonist one day. The young man decides that staying close to the protagonist is his best chance of surviving in the story. The blue-haired man looks at him and says that settles it then, once and for all. With a powerful punch, he yells for the guy to get lost and charges at him in a rage. The young man is startled by the aggression and wonders why the man is so extreme. The girl's father hits him with a punch to the stomach, and the guy feels the pain of the blow. With a bruised face, he realizes the man is really trying to hurt him. He wanted to go easy on him since he's Sash's father, but the man isn't playing around. With a sharp eye, the guy spots an opening in his opponent's guard and gets ready. With a quick blow, he hits him in the head, and the blue-haired man is surprised. The two stare each other down, and the fight becomes increasingly intense and balanced between them. With the sunset in the background, the battle between the two men continues without a winner. The girl's father is injured, but still looks at the guy with a defiant gaze. The young man realizes the situation has gotten serious and prepares for his next move. With a swift movement, the blue-haired man charges towards the guy again. He hits him in the face with the palm of his hand, and the guy feels the impact of the strong blow. With a piece of advice, he tells the young man to pay attention to his next move now. He explains that when you punch someone, you need to have the intention of finishing them. With a powerful punch, he demonstrates his technique, and the guy watches him attentively. He holds the young man's face and looks at him with a serious and determined gaze. With a glint in their eyes, the fight between the two men promises to become even more epic. A devastating punch enveloped in purple energy strikes the young man squarely in the face. The man displays an imposing posture amidst the wreckage. His fist gleaming, the boy falls to his knees, completely breathless. Before his opponent, he tries to catch his breath and admits that he narrowly escaped being caught in the attack. The young man is intrigued, trying to understand what kind of absurd movement that was. With a proud smile, the man says some mysterious words in another language. The boy is completely confused, unable to understand what he just said. The man explains that this is the legendary secret martial art of the two-headed eagle. Without wasting any time, the opponent advances fiercely. Delivering another powerful blow, the young man blocks the attack, but realizes that his kinetic vision cannot keep up with it. Desperate with the situation, Sasha screams, demanding that her father stop the fight. The old man tells his daughter not to interfere, because he is determined to take the boy with him. Ignoring his extreme fatigue, the young man wipes his face and returns to his fighting stance. The opponent proposes to teach the boy all his techniques. If he agrees to join him, he praises the boy's instincts and promises to grant him strength if he submits. The young man smiles ironically and mocks the dramatic speech he just heard. Lowering his face, the boy states that he built very valuable bonds in that place. Several fond memories of his friends and colleagues flash through his mind. With renewed determination, he moves forward, declaring that he wouldn't trade his life for anything. The old man praises this noble conviction, while the boy throws a punch with all his fury. The imposing opponent intercepts the young man's attack without showing any effort. Sasha watches the confrontation unfold, completely terrified by the violence. A colossal burst of energy erupts right in the boy's face. After the counterattack, the young man screams in agonizing pain as he feels the brutal force destroy his defenses. The absurd violence of the blow drags the boy uncontrollably backward. He tries to stay upright by wiping his mouth and breathing with extreme difficulty. Before he can recover, the old man advances at a terrifying speed. The man delivers a devastating punch that strikes his opponent's unprotected chest. With a menacing look, the enemy prepares yet another attack charged with raw energy. He pulls back his own gleaming fist, with the clear intention of ending the battle. In a desperate reflex, the young man manages to grab his attacker's wrist at that moment. The opponent easily ignores the defense and buries his right fist in the boy's stomach. The young man spits blood, realizing that this man's strength is on another level. Completely subdued, he collapses to his knees and acknowledges that he is facing the strongest opponent. Suddenly, the girl runs into the middle of the street, begging and crying for them to stop. She questions her father's excessive actions as he orders her to get out of the way. The young woman refuses to obey and threatens to do something crazy if the man doesn't back down. In a merciless move, the old man lands a swift blow directly on the back of his own daughter's neck. The boy screams in despair as he sees the girl faint on the floor after the sudden attack. Shocked by the scene, the young man accuses the man of having no pity, not even for his own blood. Clutching his badly injured arm, the boy struggles to stand beside Sasha. The old man coldly states that they have talked enough and decides to end the fight. With his eyes blazing intensely, he lunges forward, unleashing a colossal energy punch. Brutal force descends mercilessly towards the boy, who can barely move. Suddenly, the older man notices a strange movement and turns his attention. Countless gigantic weapons plummet from the sky, violently impacting the street floor. The two fighters stare at the sudden blades, completely surprised by the attack. The imposing opponent immediately recognizes those legendary shurikens of the Black Yaksha. An extremely sharp wire cuts through the air and draws blood from the older man's face. A mysterious dark-haired woman emerges from the sky wielding a sharp blade. The newcomer lands nimbly right in the middle of the street, between the two fighters. Kim Yu-sung's eyes widen as he immediately recognizes the girl with the ponytail. She introduces herself as Fuma Yukika, the 17th leader of the Fuma ninja clan. Relieved but confused, the young man asks what his senior is doing there. The older man stares at her with extreme seriousness, paying close attention to her words. Yukika reveals that the legendary Fuma Kotaro he has been searching for is actually his father, The opponent narrows his eyes, admitting that he had already heard rumors about this. The girl deduces that this is the man who was spreading rumors about the Black Yaksha. Without wasting any time, she reaches out and hands Yu Sung a small golden pill. She hurriedly explains that this is a treasure passed down through generations in the clan. The old man warns that he won't just stand by and watch them plan their next move. Kyuka orders the boy to swallow the pill quickly, while she tries to restrain the enemy. Yu Song throws the item into his mouth, mentally hoping it doesn't end up killing him. As soon as he swallows the pill, his eyes widen as he feels an immediate effect on his body. An absurdly hot energy begins to burn his insides as if it were fire. The boy writhes in pain as his body temperature rises dramatically. Veins of burning energy begin to glow intensely through the young man's neck. He lets out an agonizing scream as an aura of massive flames erupts. Yukika and the older man are completely shocked by the explosion of power. The boy's clothes are torn by brute force as flames engulf him entirely. Clenching his glowing fist, he senses an absurd amount of strength coursing through his veins. With a furious look, the young man finally feels that all his limitations have disappeared. The old man smiles in amazement, stating that the boy seems to have awakened a third eye. He faces the gigantic, mysterious energy emanating from his young opponent's body. Yukika is surprised to notice that the pill released the entire flow of power all at once. However, the ninja knows very well that the miraculous effect will only last 5 short minutes. The man smiles curiously, wondering if the boy will be able to defeat him in that time. Teasing the young man, the old man says he is impressed with his control over this energy. Some calls him an irredeemable villain for having the audacity to hit his own daughter. The experienced fighter lets out a mocking chuckle. Upon hearing the young man's accusation, he starts laughing loudly at the young man's morality. As Yu Song approaches menacingly, the old man coldly states that these nice words are just excuses from weak people. He concludes by saying that in the real world, the woos their rights to the strong. Tired of talking, the boy gets into a fighting stance and demands that he try to prove it. The man accepts the challenge as the illusion of a giant white tiger appears behind him. With brutality, the experienced opponent advances, delivering an extremely heavy punch. Sung blocks the impact but retreats, admitting that the enemy's brute force is still absurd. The old man displays a proud smile, believing he still holds the advantage in the battle. The young man straightens his posture and confidently states that he can now see all the blows. He masterfully dodges the lightning, fast flurry of punches the man unleashes on him. In a last-ditch effort, the enemy prepares a colossal punch charged with blue energy. The boy's eyes perfectly track the exact trajectory of the approaching attack. Yu Song stretches out his arm and deflects the old man's fist upwards, fully opening his guard. Without missing a beat, the young man counterattacks, landing a flaming punch right into his face. The force of the impact drags the experienced fighter's feet backward on the asphalt. His eyes widen, unable to believe he's being pressured by a kid. Yu Song gives no quarter and unleashes a relentless barrage of energized punches without stopping. The old man grinds his teeth, struggling to defend against the overwhelming sequence. The man concludes, shocked, that all that miraculous improvement in movement is the pill's fault. Furious at losing to a student, he summons the immense aura of the Emperor's Griffin. Sasha's father screams furiously as he prepares his most deadly attack. He charges forward, firing a lethal burst at the young student. Yu Song senses the rapid approach and focuses his energy without retreating. The boy throws a determined punch directly against the overwhelming attack. The old man laughs hysterically, calling the boy an idiot for trying to block him. He cruelly claims that the Griffin's claws will tear his hands off. Undeterred, Yu Song adjusts his posture and focuses on the enemy's opening. The boy clenches his fists, ordering himself to keep his guard up with an extremely fluid movement. The young man dodges his opponent's arm. The old man's eyes widen in complete shock as he sees his defense laid bare, taking advantage of the opening. Yu Sung lands a brutal kick right in his opponent's chest. Ivan Romanov feels the overwhelming force of the blow and lets out a roar of agony. The boy completes the movement perfectly, demonstrating all his power. The sheer force of the impact throws the imposing old man backward onto the asphalt. Lying on the ground, the veteran groans in pain, unable to believe what has just happened. He wonders how the strongest fighter in the world could have been defeated like that. Ivan feels humiliated for having lost to a mere Japanese student. He stares at the sky in frustration, admitting that the result makes absolutely no sense. At that moment, the young man approaches the fallen man with an angry expression, clutching his fist. Yu Sung says he regrets informing him of something very serious. The boy shouts angrily that he is actually Korean and calls the old man an idiot. Yukika and Sasha are left speechless, witnessing the outcome of that battle. They stare at the young man's back, realizing that he really did defeat the monster. The great champion and leader of a military corporation was surpassed by a boy. Yukika admits to being surprised by the victory, even knowing that he targeted an opening. The young man is breathing with extreme difficulty, feeling the full weight of exhaustion hitting him, worried about his condition. Sasha runs towards him to see if everything is all right. He apologizes for hitting her father, but the girl understands that the old man was to blame. The young man, worried, asks if the leader of his clan will be all right alone there. Sasha warns that her father won't give up so easily and tells the boy to run away immediately. Suddenly, the old man starts to move, startling the young people who are still there. Yukika says she'll take care of the big guy and tells the two of them to get away from the crowd. Yu Sung smiles in relief, entrusting the situation to his experienced senior. As the pair walk away, curious pedestrians begin to gather on the street. People murmur in shock as they recognize the great champion lying unconscious on the ground. A few days go by and the holiday brings the routine back to school. The boy walks down the hallways, massaging his neck, which is sore from the fight. He laments the pain in his body and thinks he was very lucky to have survived. Yu Sung finds it bizarre that no news about the incident leaked onto the internet. He enters the classroom feeling a chill, that something bad is going to happen. The professor asks for silence and announces the arrival of a new student from Russia. A girl calmly walks into the room, cheerfully greeting everyone. Her long, bluish hair immediately catches the attention of all the students. The young man swallows hard, recognizing the girl he helped on the street a few days ago. She introduces herself as Alexandra Romanova, but cheerfully asks to be called Sasha. Her colleagues are amazed by her beauty, while Yu Sung panics. Sasha lists her hobbies and reveals with a smile that she has recently started to enjoy something new. The girl points her index finger firmly towards the tables at the back of the room. She points directly at Kim Yu Seong in front of the entire surprised class. The boy is paralyzed with terror, feeling that his peaceful life is over forever. Classmates are euphoric and whisper about that sudden declaration. The young man sweats coldly, realizing that his peaceful life as an extra might be ruined. With a big smile on her face, Sasha confidently points her finger at the boy. The other students murmur in surprise, trying to understand how the Russian girl speaks Japanese so well. She happily replies that she learned the language on her own, just by watching anime at home. Someone asks if it's true that she likes the young man, leaving him totally tense. The girl confirms, saying that her ideal type is someone even stronger than her father. Yu Sung panics when he realizes terrible rumors are spreading in the room. Rika observes the scene from her with a visibly troubled and thoughtful expression. The boy tries to quickly explain to his friends that it's all just a misunderstanding. He realizes too late that that excuse sounded exactly like an anonymous protagonist. The young man finds it strange to receive so much attention since Sasha is one of the original heroines. He imagines that his entire calm routine will be replaced by an exhausting life of problems. Suddenly, an excited voice calls his and Rika's names. Drawing their attention, the lively redhead girl named Karen appears in the room, saying she came for a walk. She hugs the young man from behind, asking intimately if he had a good holiday. Sasha doesn't like the scene at all and shoots a sharp look in the direction of the newcomer. The Russian woman extends her hand and demands that the redhead immediately move away from the boy. Karen gets annoyed and asks who she thinks she is to try and give her orders. With a confident smile, the transfer student places her hand on her chest, exuding confidence. Sasha declares loudly and clearly that she is the person who will become Sung's girlfriend. Karen doesn't accept the insult and shouts that this idea is a big joke to her. The redhead retorts, shouting that the boy is actually already President Rika's boyfriend. Widespread confusion takes over the room, leaving all the students agitated. Sung stares blankly, unable to comprehend how he suddenly became Rika's boyfriend. The class president turns completely red and denies the rumor, shouting desperately. Sasha smiles provocatively, saying that Karen was jumping to conclusions. The Russian woman clings to the young man's arm, while the redhead screams furiously for her to let go. In the midst of all that chaotic fighting, student Ias approaches, calling out to the boy. The girl with glasses stops in front of him and shyly asks if she can ask him a favor. She asks to borrow the boy's notes, surprising the other girls. Without hesitation, the boy takes his notebook out of his bag and hands it directly to the girl. Ias politely thanks them and walks away, leaving the rest of the group in silence. Rika comments, confused, that Ias is one of the smartest girls in the whole school. Karen agrees and mocks her friend, questioning why she would take notes from a brute. The girls look at him doubtfully and ask what his real ranking position was. Sung calmly reveals that he came in first in his class, and everyone screams in shock. Sakamoto appears, teasing his friend by saying that he really seems terrible at studying. The young man gets angry at his colleague's words and prepares to punch him right there. Sakamoto looks away smiling and says that Ias isn't afraid of Sung because he's a good guy. The girls happily agree, saying that he is super kind once you get to know him. Visibly embarrassed, the boy turns his back on the group and runs to the bathroom. The friends burst into laughter and begin teasing the boy for his shy reaction. While walking alone, he decides that it's best to keep his distance from Sasha for the rest of the day. Sometime later, the bell rings, and all the students gather in the school's large cafeteria. Sung arrives at the table and notices that the three troublesome girls are already waiting for him. The young man cries inwardly, realizing that his plan to be alone has failed miserably. The students start arguing fiercely, pulling the confused boy from one side to the other. The extras whisper, dying of envy, because he's having lunch with three beautiful girls. Sung sighs, utterly exhausted, trying to find a way to escape this situation. Brilliant idea suddenly pops into the mind of the young man surrounded by girls. He turns to the girls and cheerfully asks how their studies are going for the exams. The girls immediately become depressed, begging him not to talk about exams. Sung mentally celebrates, realizing that his escape plan was working. Three begin to lament the difficulties they have with school subjects. The young man displays a victorious smile, knowing that this was the perfect chance to escape. He suggests that the three of them form a study group at one of their houses on the weekend. The guy gives a creepy smile and says he's completely free to focus on his plans. The weekend finally arrives, bringing much peace to Sung's home. The boy wipes the sweat from his face, feeling immense joy and satisfaction with his work. He poses proudly, celebrating the private gym he set up in his own home. The boy used the money he earned working as a bodyguard to buy all the equipment. Without wasting any time, he excitedly grabs the barbell to begin his bench press workout. The young man lifts the weight, laughing hysterically with excitement over his new gym. Suddenly, the cell phone starts ringing, interrupting the morning exercise routine. When he answers the call, he hears a female voice telling him to look out the window of his house. The boy opens the window, completely confused. Questioning what the girl was talking about, he looks down and sees the energetic redhead waving cheerfully from the street in his direction. The girl urges her friend to come down quickly, as she is surrounded by a sinister crowd. The young man's eyes widen in complete terror. Wondering who those guys are, several muscular men with scars stare at the boy's window with menacing expressions.